Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now? This- Can you hear? Oh, excellent. Sorry for this, and I really apologize. I was talking and then sounds like I missed a lot of it because I was talking thinking that I'm actually that you guys can hear me. So really apologize for this. Uh, Sorry for all of this again. Excellent. So I was trying to use earphones to kind of probably provide better quality of the sound, and it turns out that somehow they didn't. I mean, they work perfectly as a device, but with this hairball of software, apparently there is some kind of you know codec or driver didn't work. So I apologize for this. Okay, let's just start. Then let's just go back. Who? Okay, so I missed quite a bit. Like, well. Um, Okay, let's do a few questions that people ask. So the first one it was David Mulligan. Okay, David, I so the answer to your question, we see that there are two brigades are still in Kiev, First Brigade and the 10th Brigade. The others we just lost them from radar screens, so it's possible that they moved. In terms of is it possible? Is there any opportunity for Ukraine to use maneuver to make significant gains? Yes, we 100% saying that the only way actually for Ukraine to win this war is to do active defense. If Ukraine continues this static defense as it used to be doing so far, in the long run, this is war of attrition, and Ukraine will lose because this is super inefficient the way it's done so far. In Ukraine is smaller, 3 to 4 times than Russia, so that's just losing game in the long run for Ukraine. Let's move further. Land Hedge. Is there any evidence that SS-21 launchers have been returned to active service in Russian army? We have no idea on that. We don't know. So JF Crow. Seemingly, the post of Mariupol is taken by the Russians. Will be able to resupply through there now. They don't have problems with the supply. Just want to explain this. Let's go to the map of Mariupol. Well, actually, maybe that's not the best idea, but um, mm, actually, yeah, that's okay. Let's go to back to general map. So if you look here, Rostov on Don is very large Russian city. It's kind of the biggest hub in the south. Well, not in the entire south of Russia, but it's really big hub on the largest hub on the Black Sea coast. And well, Azov Sea, well, it's just one big pond, right? If you really think about it. And so that's there is all excellent connections, railroad, just regular road, all of that. So that's actually where the headquarters of the Eighth Army are, and that's where they their all of their inventory depots, all of that stuff, training grounds, everything is here for this whole call it southeastern front line. Let me double check that you still hear me because I'm really scared. Okay, so it sounds like people still hear. So what is so they don't have like there is like good roads there. Well, maybe not perfect, but decent ones. Let's put this way. And it's on probably like what 200 kilometers to Mariupol. They anyways transport everything by road, so they never had a problem in Mariupol to supply themselves or anything like that. There's simply no problem. Like they don't use sort of sea transport because, I mean, it's gonna be like just logistically think about this. It's a very short distance, so the time you load the ship, you know, then short distance, and time you unload, it's more efficient to use roads or railroads, right? The roads are most efficient always, right? Like the fastest, the easiest, and all that stuff. So let's just keep going. Next one. And by the way, on the seaport, um, at this point, I just want to explain to everyone the only source of information is Russian because there is obviously Azov does not provide anything, zero information. That's very clear. obviously correct for them. And then there are like civilians also are not at this point good source of information, just because they don't live there. They, it's all industrial zone, so there's nobody else except for Russians and what we see on the. So on this topic, Russians claim that they control at this point 70% of the seaport, so it doesn't even look like they control the 100% of this. But they control essentially all of it. Let's keep moving. Do you know how many Russian troops are deployed in Prednistrovia region? What this means is this area here between Moldova and Ukraine. It's actually Moldova's territory, but it was occupied by Russians since the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So there is small, probably like 3-4 battalions, small size of Russian troops, 3-4 battalions there. We don't think there is more than like 2.5 thousand, probably even less, 1800, something like that there. So they definitely will not do anything. They probably themselves scared of being attacked by Ukraine, to kind of not to have anyone sort of if you don't want to have anyone behind your back, it's still easily doable for Ukraine with the amount of troops it has. So we don't really think anything there is going to happen at this point. But you always can have surprises. Okay, okay. Sorry for this no sound. Really apologize for that. It's so Stephen Pollock. Assume for a moment Ukraine can execute an offensive to seize Crimea. What would the impact be? Russian military position and political military reaction. Okay, this is a military position. In our opinion, there's nothing. Even Russia claims that this is important for them military wise, the Crimea Peninsula. It is not. If you really think it's kind of like a bag without a handle in a way. In the whole Black Sea area, this is more important for psychological and political reasons than anything else. And it's probably will never be admitted by the Russian side. What they will do, if they're losing this war, we would not be surprised that they try to use tactical nuclear weapons. So that's very short answer to this. Okay. Hope you resolve the problem soon. The dripping of the sound. No, can you hear me now? Okay. Sorry for this again. I fear this is not getting resolved, so we'll have to volunteer. John Moser, yes. We all will join Ukrainian army very soon. Okay, so Pasolo, why the Russians not had blocked with troops the Polish and Romanian borders? Because they didn't have enough. They really, really desperately wanted it, and they wanted really push because they didn't have enough. They wanted to push Belarus to do that, but for internal reasons they could not do it because Belarus military was simply not willing to do. There's zero motivation, and you cannot send into war troops that have zero motivation. They will just surrender, and there's nothing good out. But they really, really want it. They just cannot do it at this moment. Okay, so okay, hold on, mouse please. Okay, yes, okay, I'm gonna use mouse. Sorry, just I'm trying to catch up to all of these questions, and sorry. Hold on, I just want to make sure. NA 4222. My question is whether the reason for the Russian poor performance simple faulty intelligence and mistaken assumption on invasion. Thank you. Yes, the part of not completely. There's never like one single reason for that explains everything in the first place in just in life, right? So it's one of the big reasons is false assumptions. They have very excellent intelligence. Basically, everything in Ukraine is almost like a straight line leaked to Russian intelligence services. Unfortunately, that's just reality of it. Like we're learning that all of this like list of Ukrainian militia being like Russia, like for example, this 46 brigade that we spoke about, and not only them, but for example, we know they have lists of Ukrainian militia, and they go like to homes of relatives and so on. So this is how this possible only from the like total leakage from Ukraine, right? So so unfortunately, they have full intelligence on Ukraine, like as good as it only gets. In terms of, but then they make very wrong assumptions from that information, and the biggest mistake they made, they felt because, and we need to discuss a little bit political situation. So before this war started, the current president was like going like down like a rock in terms of political popularity. Was very unpopular. It was open conversation that he needs to be removed and he should not serve the full term. Like was like political shows discussing that he needs to be, that he's driving country into the ground, right? So what Russians like took from that is that like, okay, Ukrainian people totally dislike the the current ruling party and all that stuff, and therefore they will just simply say thank you Russia, we want to be with you. That's where their problem was. And what really happened is what Ukrainian population says is, okay, we don't like you, like the current president, but doesn't mean we want to be part of Russia. We want to continue our path into finding sort of the right solution for us, right? So that's where the whole thing is, and that's why this operation was structured as a police operation. And now Russian like how to say, Russian top installed new general. So this is complete restructuring of the operation, and this really means that this is going to be now done more like a war. Just on this topic, we want to mention that we didn't discuss this yesterday, but Russia installed new general who's going to oversee the whole thing. This really means that there is a big restructuring going on in the Russian troops behind the scenes. And the fact that he was appointed only yesterday, we believe, maybe before yesterday, we don't remember exact date. That really means that there is still quite a bit of, because he just, this is like think about new CEO of the company. He just came. That really means before he start doing like sort of attacking, he needs some time to clean up the mess inside of his company, right? So the same is here. So it does seem to us another clue that the Russian attack is not imminent. We may get surprised. It's totally possible. We accept, but like small clues tell that they need more time to reorganize themselves. This is just another clue to support that case. Okay. Sorry for the long thing. Gerardo G. Okay, so hold on, Gerardo G. Why Russia Air Force do not have any impact? No, well, they have huge impact. Like that's partially why Ukrainian side doesn't even try to do any major offensive, because Russia controls the air, and that's why, like, let's say they don't try to relieve Mariupol, right? Because if this is the area here near Mariupol is totally flat. This whole south of Ukraine is like flat table with essentially no trees and only like tall grass or agricultural fields. So you have total visibility for long distances. And if you try to attack, let's say from here to Mariupol without like cover from the air, you're gonna get destroyed, bombed out into nothing, not even inflicting any significant losses on the Russian side. So that's actually air control of the air is even more important in the southern Ukraine because of the nature of the terrain, which is, as we said before, it's totally flat, and there is essentially no coverage. very how to say, not sparsely, yeah, it's still even like more, there's a lower density in terms of population there, and those, well, so basically there's even from the structure perspective, like, houses and towns, it's all smaller, there are longer distances there, it's just really open fields and they flat like a table, and this creates difficult environment for Ukraine to operate. Okay, sorry again. Well, I'll try to be very concise and move quicker. NA. Um, okay, so that we did answer that. Sorry for this. Keith Murphy, why are the most accurate sources you use for what are the most? It's actually not. This is actually very wrong assumption by most people that we use some kind of like 2, 3, 4 sources and we just repeat what they say. This is actually not true. We do analysis here, and that's where this is all coming from. It's not, there's no one single resource. We use really a lot ones, like from many ones, like from the weaker ones to the stronger ones. And this is really analysis, this is really power of analysis rather than just repeating. Like, we're not parroting anyone, if that's what you guys like thinking that there is like 2, 3 sources. There's clearly not that. I mean, obviously there are, like, on the Russian side there is a bunch of resources that we use. Then there's like official Ukrainian ones, and a lot of it is just people talking on the social, on the social media. That's really where and then we use analysis. We're not just like saying, because if we just try to say what we hear, this will be just total useless noise to you, because everybody's trying to push their agenda. They all biased, and they all try to kind of present themselves in a better shape than they are. And that's just I hope people start to realize this. Gabriel Pushar, Russian Air Force is clear in a worse shape than everybody thought. My guess is that they fear losing planes that can. I mean, they're not like, no, they're enough for this war. Okay, maybe they're not in the best shape relative to U.S. Air Force, sure, but for war with Ukraine, they are enough, and that's what really matters at this moment. Uh, Frank Sposato, from a purely historic mind viewpoint, do you have a favorite battle from this war so far? Oh, not really. There's not really even like one big battle here, in our opinion. Like true battle. Like how the battles are. It's more like a sound like a skirmishes and all that stuff. What we impressed is really about the defense of Mariupol, where people essentially what, like 40 days totally sealed, and they fighting, and they're really making it really painful for the Russian side. Like, they're in pain. We can clearly see that. We also watch the videos and of the action from there, and it's total pain for them. There's very clear that we also like admire Ukrainian militia west of Kiev, because that's who stopped, and they had like huge losses. There's no question. We just admire like people who like never had, never carried a gun, don't understand much, and they went and fought and died, and many of them died. And that just impressive. That's all. Penguin in its week. How much of an effect do you think drones as switchblades are having in the battlefield? Well, let's separate drones from switchblades, right? Um, Drones have very big impact and could have even more than what they have. The problem, both armies, and when I mentioned this before, are a product of a Soviet system, which is very red tape type of stuff, very bureaucratic, don't want to try anything, no initiative. As a result, they are underutilized on both sides. What saves Ukrainian side? That there is this militia, which is not part of the Soviet system, and there is like common sense mentality, kind of call it like very like initiative driven situation, and that really saves Ukrainian side. That really something that Russia cannot emulate, right? So that's big advantage that Ukraine has. And so they use extensively drones. They could do it better, but they have like, really poor commercial drones. And DJIs, like we discussed that they basically send all of information to the Russian intelligence back, because DJI enabled that, and they don't want to stop it. So and the people still use them, and they still get information, but at the expense of being shelled. Like, you go, and if you stay in the same place for a long time, like 5 minutes or more, 10 minutes, you're gonna get shelled, because everything, your GPS coordinates go back to the Russian troops, and then they artillery just shells the area. So just so you understand, so in our opinion, drones are like something underappreciated, but this is going to be very important part of the future warfare. And then switchblades, we haven't seen them in action. They probably somewhere on the way, and there is also training needed for their use. So it doesn't look like they super easy from what we understand. And then really the bad part of it is like there's only 10 Switchblade 600, which is really what is needed. Not and they supplied like 100 Switchblade 30, which is less needed. So in a way, it's even like complete mismatch in what is needed and what is supplied. So, Matei Sego, do you think Russia will try to capture Odessa in this war? They really would like to do that. If there is opportunity, they will go after it. But so far, it's not like everything is in there. They can do whatever they want. At this point, they short on troops. They short like on resource, like troops. That's what I mean by resources. So it's like bridge too far at this point for them, but they will if they could. I mean, this is like they're like they sleep and they think about it basically. F2000 is all of Azov groups run in Mariupol. So um, sort of call it like the the skeleton, the backbone, the most like the best of it, sort of to say. Yes. Um, yes, there are some parts of Azov outside. Yes, but they are, smaller. Let's say 80% is there, 20% is out. So just so you understand, and the best like fighters and all like most sort of crazy ones are in Mariupol. We no, they will not be wiped out. That's for sure, because the and which is kind of like not very maybe even great, but the part of the top is outside of Mariupol. It never was there in the first place. So we're sure that they're gonna rebuild the whole the unit. But it's just very good quality people in terms of they as the fighters. So we do think that they will do breakout. They not kind of, because you saw that mm, those soldiers from Naval Infantry Battalion 501 that they surrendered. This is exactly kind of nothing to they they probably did right thing. We never wanted them to die as a heroes because it's stupid at this point. Like what's going on there? If they cannot be effective, then that's fine. Just surrender. That's the best. But this is actually very good comparison and contrast between the regular army and Azov. That regular army in the most situation they will just surrender and that's it, and that's fine. But Azov will fight, and then they will fight creatively, and that's why they could survive longer, because they not constrained by this rigid bureaucratic mentality, and that's a key here. And so we do think that they will do breakout. We like 99.9 they not gonna just stupidly die there. That's I can guarantee you that. um why? Because Matthias Pizzini, Why does this giant offensive still didn't happen? Because Russian troops suffered heavy losses. It's really the more we look at the situation, it really reminds German army 1943 near Kursk, right? So they were controlling the front lines, they were had the initiative. Now they suffered heavy losses, they retreated, but they still have upper hand in terms of initiative. But they really need to replenish themselves and regroup. If you kind of read about the Kursk, it took Germans to, I think, 2 months is almost, and that's partially why they lost, because they actually decided to refit and replenish and bring new equipment and be in perfect best shape, and that took them more than 2 months. So, but definitely, it took them a while to do that. And so this is the same kind of story is happening here with the Russian troops. They exhausted, they suffered losses. Many of the troops that we discussed from the Kyiv West, we don't think that they usable again in terms of immediate use, like even within a week, 2, 3, 4, 5, because for psychological. And there was someone on the comments thread who actually picked it right. This is like if you lost, like, let's say 25% of your unit, like people get depressed, like they understand that they just pretty much guaranteed to die next, right? It's hard to, and when you pull them out, you need to give them like break, psychological break out of all of this. They need the break, and it's not going to be 2 day break, and it's going to be 1 week break. They really need the break, and then you need to refill the ranks. It also takes time. It's not like, oh, I have an infinite supply of this, of the people, because we still need to understand Russia is not doing mobilization formally. Okay, they do a little bit like sort of covert one, and but it's but they're not doing full blown, like really like in the easy way. So they cannot really easily refill the losses. They still probably have enough, call it like volunteers, to fill the ranks, to bring it up a little bit more, to maybe even initial size of the forces. But it's not easy, like, and those units, they need to be taken out, and they were taking out. So now they exhausted, they need time, and if we would not be surprised if this break lasts for months. Like if this war, and it seems like the war will keep going the way this goes. It seems like there is like total, not like hatred, but like this, like resolve to fight till the end from both sides. So just, I mean, who knows, maybe there is a, somehow Russia says, yeah, we're gonna, retreat, and we're gonna return everything back, and but sounds like a miracle to us at this point. Okay, sorry for long answer. Luis Antes, how would the Russia complete capture of Mariupol result in the freeing of assets to be deployed further to north? I think those assets there, like 150th Division, 810th Brigade, 22nd Special Force, they exhausted. They will be taking out of they not gonna participate in the push towards north. Similar to those troops like Kiev West, in even Kiev East, we don't really see them yet, right? So it does look like we don't really think that these troops are gonna are usable. They are in situation when they are um, capable of defense, and they're not capable of offensive at this point for many reasons. Then Pasolo, why the Russian did not destroy all the roads and railroad coming from Poland and Romania? Good question. We just think that there will be so much more sanctions on them, that they destroying infrastructure, that that the so probably pain outweighs the gain. And then railroads are relatively easy to rebuild. Like, I'm not saying easy, but they don't take too long to rebuild. I don't know, that's our best explanation. And you know anything is possible. We do see right now with all of the hits that that Russia is trying to they trying to hit some of the major railroad hubs, like this Volodymyr Volynski here. They hit it like probably 5 days ago or something. Then there is a Pavlodar here. That's like major railroad hub here to supply troops in the Donbass salient. Then you obviously heard about Kramatorsk. There are others. There is Lozova here, closer to Izum. They hit it too. So they seems to start to hit the railroad infrastructure, but it's not at mass scale yet. You mouse not showing the screen. Okay, because there is not much really show on the screen right now. So we only show if there is something that we can really show on the screen. Okay. Okay, sorry for them. Okay, we'll try to do with the mouse, but it doesn't look like there is much there. Bukur. Okay. Hello, bro. What are the Russian? So Luis Fontaine. Hello, bro. Where are the Russian troops that retreated from east and west of Kiev? So they were moved to Bryansk and Kursk region of Russia, and some of them just returned home, which is all over the place in Russia, like places like Kostroma, like so they were returned. Some of so partially. So this is the thing that we're still trying to understand. So it seems like the most beaten up to units that lost probably like let's say 50% or close to that, like let's say 40%, they probably totally were returned home. And we don't have perfect information on which ones. Well, we know that many of them here, the Kiev West, suffered heavy casualties. The Kiev East group did not suffer as much. In our opinion, this brigades 15s, 27, 35, and 74 probably reusable, and 30s actually were 5. And we probably may see them soon, like when Russian troops will attack. So but this is like heavy casualties here, like the 11th Airborne Brigade, heavy casualties. 31st Airborne Brigade, heavy casualties. 155th Naval Infantry Brigade, heavy casualties. We don't know enough about we think 5th Tank Brigade also had maybe not as heavy, but quite painful losses here. And these divisions, we don't know exact, but some of them suffered more, and some of them out of these 3 divisions, some are in better shape. We don't have that level of information, but not all of them are sort of reusable. So the most beaten up went back home to home bases. The ones that can be still used went to this is Kursk region here in Russia. You see, so this is Kursk, and I'm also hearing that some of them are starting to move to Belgorod region. This is Belgorod region in Russia. This is where you obviously would be attacking from, right? So you would there is a town called Valuki here. You see, that's a large Russian military camp there. So that's just how it works. Um, do you know if any other countries than the Czech Republic are sending tanks? No, not to no, we don't. No other countries. Um, no, there's clearly no tanks from other countries. I mean, well, obviously could be, it's all secret as well, but no. Penguin Sweet, what's your opinion on the performance of Vedava in this war? They have a this is question about the airborne troops. That's what we were just talking about. They are highly motivated, right? But they have a problem in general of this call it Soviet mentality. That's a problem, and that's a big hurdle in terms of doing, really great. But they have good motivation. That's for sure. There's no question about that. They yeah, we wouldn't say that they are. Well, I don't know. Maybe this elite stuff. When people in, call it, former Soviet Union, they assume that these units, airborne units, are elite troops. There was never ever actually proved that they are elite in terms of actual performance. If you look at the Russian Soviet airborne troops during World War II, they did not do well at all. It was terrible. That in actually, so there was major in this area near Kharkiv, uh, airborne attack by the Soviet troops here, and it went horribly. It was totally bad. And then after that, Stalin decided to stop using them. So just so you understand, they never were proven to be elite, but we do have to say they have motivation. That's for sure. There's no question about that. And that's very important. That's one of the most important things, call it, in this whole situation. Then NA 4222. Denis, do you think it's possible for Russia to capture something big on the right side of the Dnipro River? Oh, well, so they already have this bridgehead, which is, west bank near here in Kherson, west bank of the Dnipro River. So that's very important. I mean, obviously they want to capture Dnipro. This is the city of Dnipro, formerly known as Dnipropetrovsk. They want to capture Zaporizhia. This is a huge, important industrial centers that's left in Ukrainian sort of possession, because Mariupol was another one, and this is even, let's say, Ukraine, let's say, recaptures, it's destroyed, so it will take really long time to rebuild the whole thing. But the two that still work in Kryvyi Rih, that's another. So let's call it this triangle here: Zaporizhia, Dnipro, Kryvyi Rih is basically industrial heart of Ukraine. And if they capture it, like, essentially Ukraine is kind of done economy wise. I mean, there is agriculture, but that's just not how you can do things in life these days. So this is probably would be, that's what is really important. But the Russian, there's no question, they don't have enough strength right now to do that much. Okay, so Gabriel Pushar, history my opponents will send some for sure. Okay, that's okay. John Black, why is Mariupol still holding? Thanks to Azov, and we also believe thanks to that helicopter bridge that was working till when it was discovered was about like a week ago. So we probably think that it stopped about a week ago. Before that, it was working, so they were getting ammunition, probably medical supplies and all that stuff, so they could like, this is really because of Azov. And then really think about this. This is a large city, and Russians had maybe at best 20,000. We really think it's between 15 and 18,000. For the large city, it's like, think about it, like you have small piece of salt and you drop it in like 1 liter size glass jar in the water, and it just dissolves and disappears. This is what this 18,000 for this type of the city is. They're just not meaningful. So that's the biggest reason why, because they cannot create seamless like front lines. So that's why when actually, let's just look at this. So when you see how they attack, and this is probably a little bit less useful map, but initially they didn't even attack all fronts. They just chose 2 directions. So they attacked from the west here, basically along this road was really the whole attack. They didn't even touch here, didn't even try to do anything. Didn't try to do anything here, just like because there's not enough troops. And then they attacked here, and it's still taking them forever to actually. That's it. This was essentially kind of like, for the most time, this was controlled by Ukrainian side, and even this huge piece still controlled by Ukrainian side, because it's a Swiss cheese of the, like, in terms of front line. So that's why we think there's, for as long as the perimeter is still, it's a geometry problem. We mentioned this before, right? If this perimeter stays long enough, the Russian troops cannot really create true perfect sealed situation, and there is still opportunity for Ukrainian troops to break out. It's totally possible. The whole area is like, you don't think that this is all saturated with Russian troops. No, it's not, because there is not enough of them. That's a whole problem. Think about this. This like actually this is good. Like thinking. If you really think about Ukraine, right? And there was World War II. So in 1943, that's when the most battles were happening here in Ukraine. Like combined amount of the troops was about like 4.5 million from both sides, right? Fighting here. And then they were able to create seamless front lines. Think about this right now. It's at most 200 from each side. So it's so for that reason there is no seamless front lines, with the exception of this Donbass salient. That's the only place where, and even there, in some places it's just strongholds that are like, like 1 kilometers from one from another. So it's not even there perfect front, like the front line that you can envision as like trenches, seamless line of trenches. It's similar, very similar here, Donbass salient, but it's even not even there. There's simply not enough troops on both sides to do that, typical like World War II or World War One type of warfare. So that's why it's much more like a battle groups fight in around certain areas, and that's kind of how it is. Um, how they want to beat the Ukrainian forces in the Donbass. So in terms of beating Ukrainian forces, we spoke about this, right? So the whole idea is very very simple: is create two pincers. One's coming from the north and kind of going this way, and the other one is from the south, and they meet in, in circle. This is like the plan maximum for Russian side at this point, right? Encircle them. So that's the plan maximum that they want to do, and destroy all of these brigades, which would be huge loss for Ukraine. The other plan is, okay, attack from here and attack from here. Maybe you're not gonna reach perfectly situation, but like psychologically make Ukrainian top with this, basically to withdraw from the Donbass salient and just form new front line somewhere around here, this line, right? So basically creating so this is kind of like a plan minimum for Russian side. So to scare enough Ukrainian side to just withdraw because they're scared that they're going to be encircled. And so this is hopefully the answer to your question. Pasolo, the foreign mercenaries that are going to be taking prisoners, they will be POVs, or what is going? Yeah, it sounds like honestly that Russians are gonna execute them on the spot. That's just they say that, and we know how they are. So it sounds like that's probably done deal. Let's put it this way, unless they want to like parade them for like propaganda reasons. But in most cases, they probably will be executed, or they want to like get some special intel, like that stuff. But typical situation, they will be executed. They already say that. So there are Georgian. Georgian, not U.S. Georgia state, right? But the country, which is actually the original name is Sarkatvello or Sakartvelo. We don't remember exact. Sorry for that. I apologize to all of the citizens of Georgia, of the state, oh, not state, but of the country of Georgia. But basically, so there is about like significant number of those volunteers. So the Russians already said that they're not gonna take them as the prisoners. So that's like already announced. And the Georgians also said we're not gonna take Russians as a prisoners. So there's already kind of like formal. Okay, that's just kind of everybody knows. So okay, John Sich. Okay, Thomas Rossoy. Are there any known weapons of any of the parties that have not been used yet but can be used later in the war if things do not develop? Well, yeah, nuclear weapons. That's the only thing that still wasn't really used here. The rest is pretty much there. Like everybody, that like, well, I guess chemical weapons, yeah. So you can say that as well. But hopefully, not gonna get to that point. Penguin in a suite. How have the Ukrainian Foreign Legion been performing in the war? Have they made a difference? Mm, everything, every single extra, rifle on Ukrainian side is important, and it is extremely helpful. What it really is more important is for Ukrainian people to see support from outside. That's the most. It's more psychological support than any. Like that's where it makes hugest difference for Ukrainians, for their desire to continue fighting. Think about this: like the whole unit is probably like battalion size, right? I mean, it's 600 people, like 200 on our, 200. So it's small size. Like you just need to be realistic about it. It's They are much better trained. Well, I wouldn't be saying for everyone, because there's a lot of people who just want to help, but there are a lot of them who are very well trained. And there's no specific report of like, of one of this unit, and like, well, we know exact, like, there's no, it's kept very secret, right? The whole thing. We would say that they're very motivated fighters, so that's very important, right? But there is no specific like report of like specific battle encounters or anything. um Laura and Dan, has anyone a knowledge about Russian and Ukrainian losses in Mariupol? Mm, we can estimate that, and we can tell you that Russian losses are heavy. It's painful. In Ukraine, Ukraine losses are smaller in our view. Probably will be large in terms of prisoners of war, because you saw that 501st Battalion, and it's not even entire battalion so far, looks like, because the total amount that surrendered, it was about 310. The battalion is usually, at least 400, usually 500-600. So it doesn't, well, maybe there is just losses like in terms of wounded and killed, so maybe that's what it is. And then probably 503rd Battalion will surrender. In 36 Brigade, unclear. It's like probably half of them will surrender, half of them will try to break out. And yeah, but we would say that Russian losses are pretty painful in there. I mean, Ukraine probably lost, I don't know, we would say it's all speculative. First of all, there's no formal reports. We just see from the videos when you look at them. And we saw, let's say, the number of the dead on the Russian side. It's significant. They even show it. It's significant. And then Azov shows it too. And then when the Russians show Ukrainian side, it's not as many dead people on the Ukrainian soldiers. And most of it probably because they prefer to surrender if they are getting to the point. Um, so John Moser, what I don't understand, I have addressed that before. Ukraine needs to establish the border line again. Okay, long lasting. Okay, that's not the question. I mean, why attacking the old depot with 2 helicopters? This can be easily done with a couple of 10,000 drones. Maybe this is that's, John. Ukrainian army is not that sort of technologically, not even. It's more the like this is the product of the Soviet Union. I want to repeat this like probably many times, just people understand it's very bureaucratic, slow, like there's lack of initiative, general machine, like both the Russian and Ukrainian army, that they are not. If you look at it from like, don't have the perception of them as like they function as Western equivalents. They not function in that way. They this is their own system in a way. So that needs to be kept in mind. Okay, Sergei Raksha, what do you think about the rocket in Kramatorsk? It's just very speculative. Um, what happened there? It's clearly, one thing is clear. It's Tochka U, right? So that's 100% clear. The the question is, okay, who launched it? I mean, it would be very kind of stupid and strange from Ukrainian side to attack itself. It's like someone goes and cuts his own hand. Like, why would you? I mean, this is just the it just out, doesn't make sense to us, right? But we know, that's why we say it's speculative, right? In terms of Russia's ability to do it, they have tons of .O. They're not actively being deployed in the troops because they upgraded the arsenal of the rockets. That's why they have this, all of this Iskanders and all that fun stuff, right? This is just basically upgraded .O, better version of .O. And but they kept all of that. Like, this is like nature of the Soviet Union. They always keep the ammunition and equipment. That's why you have huge depots of all of that stuff. So they technically capable, and that's kind of like a perfect crime. You can say, okay, we don't use it, therefore it's not ours, but they do have it in their inventory, right? So they can, but at the same time, anything is possible. Who knows? Maybe there's a mistake by Ukrainian soldier who just made the just human mistake. We're not excluding that. We're not saying like, oh, this is 100% Russia. We don't know, but like we're leaning towards it's Russia, but we're not excluding anything. West bank of Dnieper at Kherson. So this is Stephen Pollock. West bank of Dnieper at Kherson front appears vulnerable. West Bank. If Russian units push back to east side, would they blow a Nova Kakhovka bridge? So this is actually, how to say, Russian troops here are more somewhat kind of beaten up, not terribly, but this 126th Brigade is definitely not in good shape. 205th Brigade is not in good shape. 7th Airborne Division also not in good shape. The ones that are okay shape. Oh, and 10th Special Forces Brigade not in good shape. So the ones in okay decent shape is 7th Military Camp, which is essentially brigade, and 20th Brigade, which also could mean that this is 20th Division. So because 20th Brigade is part of the 20th Division, but we did not identify the whole unit here. So we cannot say that there is entire 20th Division here. So there are only 2 units that are in okay shape. This 59th Brigade is actually has capable commander actually. For the whole kind of bureaucratic system, it has capable commander. So that's one thing. Then what we see, they also bring in some reserve battalions from 28th Brigade. Then there is 60th Brigade, even it's not in the best shape, but it can at least hold, like it can defend, right? So, and then we see also 80th Brigade operating here. We don't know in which shape the 80th Brigade, because it used to be here on blocking Crimea Peninsula, and it took the whole hit on itself initially. So it suffered heavy casualties. Maybe it's being it's was brought back to full strength. We don't know where it is, but meaning the strength wise, but it's definitely here. So these troops are enough to defend this whole area, and it doesn't look like Russian troops are capable of attacking at this point out of this without more troops coming. And that's the whole point, that Russia went all in with what it had like readily deployable into battle, and that's it. Like the only option is full mobilization. That's really what's left for them if they want to do it in a conventional way without using nuclear weapons and all that fun stuff. So that's kind of, but that those conscripted units, they're not good. We see this in there are basically we saw reports of units that were from this captured part of Donetsk and Luhansk region, and they were filled with locals, just grabbing anyone like after the war started, actually without any training, thrown into the battle, and they suffer heavy casualties, and they do mass surrender. They don't do well at all. So this is like nature of conscripts, just for everybody to understand. And conscript from Moscow, he doesn't want to fight. Like, just really need to understand. That's like people having high life, excellent life. They don't want to die in the middle of nowhere in Ukraine. And this is problem. That's why we think that full mobilization is still not being done by Russia because it's politically it's not going to be easy there. Okay. Well, bridges in Nova Kakhovka. Let's actually look there. Let's look at the situation here. So, yeah. So this was actually not. They will definitely blow up, right? Like Russian, like for example, in Ivankiv, this was north. When they were retreating, they actually managed to capture the bridge over Tatar, even in Ivankiv. Basically, it was blown. Like basically, half of it was blown by retreating Ukrainian troops, but they didn't do good job. So the half remained, and Russian troops used it like perfectly in Ivankiv. This was in the north west of that western thing of Kiev, and when they were retreating, they blew up the whole thing. So yeah, definitely they will blow these bridges up for sure, and that's actually a question why Ukrainian retreating troops did not blow this up and it's being used by Russians. That's a good question. From Frank Posado, from a purely historic minded view, do you have the favorite? But okay, so this is the same. Is it not the same question? I think I answered. What do you CB? What do you think about the missile attack in Crimea? Okay, though this was answered. Jimmy James Russia. Okay. Dmitry Telin. Oh, hey, Dmitry, how's 5th Tank Brigade? You can tell us a little bit more about that. This will translate obviously stupid things. Okay, right. Okay, thanks for saying all of this, but please try to be helpful. Ace Combates ER. I don't know. Do you think this is the beginning of the end of for Ukraine? Okay, this is now Russian trolls. Ninja painting. Sergey is much like some. Okay. CD run fight. Okay, that's not a question. History matters. Do you think Ukraine was behind the bomb? Okay, yeah, I answered that question. I don't know. That saying it more. We don't think so. But anything. It was only if it's Ukraine. It was only by like literally human mistake. That's the only way we could see it happening. Okay. I don't. Okay, let's keep. Harpoons coming. Okay, so Raymond May. Harpoons coming from the UK. Your thoughts? Not a game changer. First of all, they need the training. That's they need. There is a steep learning curve there. So it's not readily easily deployable unless you actually have British, soldiers, whoever experts there helping with it. So, and then the thing is that Ukraine has actually rockets, and the problem is that this government decided to kill, like, not to finance this anti-ship rocket program. Ukraine actually developed decent product, and it wasn't just. It didn't. Sorry for this. Sorry, I didn't expect this. Kramatorsk was the Ukrainians. Okay, well, guys, how many Russian bots do you have here? We have a lot, so I don't have time to delete them. We will eventually get rid of them. Penguin in a suite. How has been the performance of the Ukrainian Defense Force? We just spoke. It's varies, right? I mean, in overall, motivation is strong everywhere. Regular army, Ukrainian militia, all of the people really like. They not like breaking. There's no question about this. It's totally morale is high. I mean, and given especially that heavy losses, a lot of people died, and people still like, okay, we're not giving up. RV Dorvald, fuse the harpoons to be okay. I don't understand. It's like you need to write a little bit. I don't understand your question. Please write it a little bit more clear way. Vadim K, do you think NATO is advising Ukrainian generals about how to attack to make up for the Soviet era shortcomings you're discussing? They have these advisors, but unfortunately, I don't listen to them very much. That's another shortcoming of the Soviet thinking. unfortunately. So okay, let's keep going. Okay, we started this whole holy war with Russian trolls, and it's unfortunately creating problems. Jesus. Pasolo, have you seen the face of the Chechenian army? Oh my god. Okay, like ages, how long will the mud be an effective defense? No, mud is not effective defense in this war. Never was. Like this is actually the strength of the Soviet army. It does not sort of it's not afraid or not stoppable by mud. So because both armies are the product of that, they not stoppable by mud. So don't think that mud is any kind of problem. This is not a German army in World War II. And this is very different. Even though the equipment actually the newer Soviet equipment is actually worse from that perspective, as I discussed few days ago, but it's totally just don't even think about mud in this war. It doesn't matter. um can you comment on Russian discipline, ninja painting? Actually, very interesting point. So so at first they were more disciplined, and probably because A didn't suffer heavy losses, and they were kind of expecting this as a police operation with very clear pattern. As time like passed by and the losses started to mount, they started to do more kind of military crimes type of stuff, and looting and all. Like towards the end, it was really the worst. So this did not like happen immediately. It's just how war destroys humans in every human, sort of to say. And so yeah, so and obviously, people get, I mean, they definitely got, psychologically didn't feel great, and that's part of why they were removed from northern Ukraine. Not like just because of the psychology reason. I think, well, not saying, but it was the strategic decision was because it was strategic mistake to keep them there. But as things get worse, the people do much worse things, and there's clear pattern there. Bible English. Do you believe that the outcome of the war depends on whether Russia forces can take and control surveillance and Barvinko so that they can encircle? There is, well, no, I mean, the war is, no, it will be significant. Like, okay, if what you're referring to, if Russian troops are able to encircle Ukrainian troops in this Donbass salient, is this going to be the death blow to Ukraine? It will be huge, bad, bad, bad blow, but it's not going to be death blow for sure. Like it's going to be terrible. There's very probably most of this part will be at that point lost, and maybe the Russian troops will, at least this part will be probably lost because there's going to be a lot fewer Ukrainian troops. But then also don't discount Ukrainian militia, because right now, to be honest, a lot of Ukrainian militia is from, especially from Kiev area. Most of them don't move towards east. They kind of stayed there, and probably, they realize how difficult it is, and there is high probability to die. And if you're not really called to do that, you probably don't really want to try that. Some of the units moved, but majority of them not. But if this happens, that there is, okay, gap here, there will be a lot of like stronger motivation to stop here. And also think that this is not going to be, even if this troops going to get lost, they will take with them quite a bit of Russian troops as well. So at that point, Russian capabilities also will be exhausted. It's very similar to Azov and 36th Brigade here in Mariupol, right? They essentially taking with them this 3 units here, and maybe there are more units, but that's what we identify here. They essentially making them incapable of continuing the war without significant break, refitting, and all that stuff. So this is going to happen to essentially all of like the core of Russian troops, and at that point, it's probably gonna end up in some kind of political discussion and political solution. Okay, so let's. Okay, guys, I would ask, like, don't respond to the Russian trolls. They just clogs the system. It's easier for me to kind of go and just avoid the like. I'm not reading the comments and whatever. What do you think about Dvornikov? Okay, that's a very good question. Vadim Gershman. We don't know much about him, and that is a very important question. Where, by the way, the very important question, and that's actually key. He did he was fighting in Syria, and but this is real. This is not Syria. This is much worse. So it's so he has mentality of like that kind of type of war, which is like not where Russia has like total, like forces that were against them didn't have, like very good military structures, didn't have, it's not fighting regular army, and so this is a notch up from for sure from Syria. And it's unclear if he can handle it, but it's clear that at least from a perspective that the Russian top is trying to find someone better, that's a move in the right direction for them, because maybe Dvornikov will not work out and they will replace him. Eventually they will find someone who works. And so from that angle, it's like evolution, right? You just try until you find someone. But the same was actually happening in World War II with the Soviet generals, right? All of the first wave of generals, they ended up being terrible, most of them, and some of them were even executed by Stalin. So until he found by trial and error, but they may not have enough resources to do trial and errors here. They already did one error, and it essentially crippled them so that they cannot attack the whole of the Ukraine, and they had to reduce the whole really action to just Donbass salient. And if there's another big mistake at that point, they probably don't have much of the offensive capability unless they do full mobilization. Um, well, Jimmy Gems, Chechens are actually, there are two parts there, and that needs to be understood. There are ones who basically like collaborate with Russia and like the part of the Russian system, and then there are ones that want independent Chechnya. So you need to understand that. Um, okay, so Arvid Dorwald, is there a point where Ukraine would be too successful to give Putin the chance to end the war? Well, yeah, if Ukraine manages to push to do decisive, I mean, it's not like he decides where the war ends. Like, for example, like here, northern Ukraine, right? It was his personal decision, not even like Russian military. It was his personal decision to take out these troops out of here, northern Ukraine, right? It was his personal decision. Just so everybody understands, it wasn't decision of whatever the general like Shoigu or whatever. Like, no, it was his personal decision to move them out. And that doesn't mean that, but at the same time, he cannot decide the fate of this war. It's not like in under his control, like how it's gonna play out, right? This is both sides are fighting here. um okay. uh J Ra, will Russian push to Dnipro above the Porozhye from both sides? They more likely to push. They already like, we don't know, but probably like 50 kilometers away from Zaporizhia here south. They certainly want to take Zaporizhia. There's no question about it, and they wanted to do it from this side as well, because Nikopol is another important industrial city. It's they make cement. So like the from the chemical table of elements. I don't know the English name. It's Mn, right? So that's important ingredient for steel making. So so that's important there. Can Russians instruct Zaporizhia from both sides? At this point, no. They can only attack it from the eastern side. There's troops here, not enough. They basically, there's a balance here on both sides. So Russian troops cannot attack. They don't have enough. Ukrainian troops strong enough to defend, but they tried to attack and they failed. So there is a balance here right now. So they're not going to attack from the west unless they get more troops, obviously. But it doesn't look like, if Russians are still scrambling to get troops for this Donbass salient, they're certainly not going to, throw troops here, not to be able to, because the war is about concentrating your troops. So if you need everything, right? They need everything they can have here in this Donbass salient right now. So they're not going to do anything here. They're on defensive there. This is again goes back to that analogy with World War II, 1943, summer of 1943 for Germany. They did not have troops to do anything active action in their Army Group North, in the Army Group Center, and even in Army Group South. They couldn't do much. They only selected small section of the front line. This is exactly the situation for the Russia right now. I would be in Windows OS government. I heard the, yeah, there is. So this is a kind of statement, Bible English, that there are 60,000 conscripts were mobilized by that. There is kind of stealth mobilization in Russia happening. It's probably makes sense. We will not be surprised. Just a guy. Hello, hi, nice to see you. That you're here. Frank Spasatov, how much different is this war from Syria? Oh, well, it's very much different. It's closer to World War II. It just, there is not enough density of troops. Otherwise, it's very similar to, and this is partially because the whole this Ukraine, Russia, it's all raised on World War II, and all of these generals that, like, that's how they were raised, like learning about the operation at that time, and that's how the whole psychology works here right now. And there are enough like strong equipment. There are like 2 regular armies. So this is not Syria for sure. Syria is definitely not the same, not the right comparison here. Rosa Dew. There are rumors Russian units landed in Odessa. No, that's not. That's when no. In our opinion, that does not make any kind of sense, for simple reason that they would even overstretch resources even more to fight here in Odessa, where Ukraine has like full brigade, and this is decent brigade. This is not 60th brigade. This is decent brigade that's capable, very capable. That doesn't make any sense. When what we saw so far news, we haven't seen that. So this is, I don't know where you're getting that. Okay, J Rock, can Russians pass their prison go in circle Dnipro? Well, I mean, yes, they can. At this point, they don't have troops to do that. Can we block the idiot Tony Tren? Okay, Tony Tren. Okay, well, I just don't know. Like, I'm not following this wrong comments from people. So let's just. I'm really focused on productive questions, and like people want to really learn. Can you comment on Russian army discipline? Your thoughts? I think I just told you about that. I mean, they do loot. Like, there's no question. There's a total, like, there's a lot of military crime. There is that. There's no question about it. But as I said, this is just, that's like a tip of the iceberg, and I think this is really big disservice. Focus on that as opposed to focusing on this 46th brigade. That's really where it's systemic. It's very sought out, it's very well organized, and that's where the real root of the problem is. Not like the military crime in there's always in every army. There's no question about it. And probably Russian army is worse in that regard than, typical or whatever. I don't know, whatever army, Swedish army, whatever you call it. even like than Ukrainian army. But that's not where the problem is, and I think we should not focus on that as opposed to real root of the problem. Saber one, why Ukraine not just blow up the bridge around Kherson? Well, if they could, they would, but they have no ability to do that. Okay, no. Well, because I'm not, there is nothing to show here. If I have anything to show and then I use cursor, anything new from Izium? No, it's quite there. So that's another. We will do the update later after this, and let's go to Izium here. Oops, sorry. Let's go to Izium. Where is it? Just a second. I need to go all the way back. So the Russian troops were all stopped. We said, we discussed this for probably already like 3 or 4 days. There's no progress. We believe they lost their, they lost their steam. They probably suffered enough losses and they need more. And not to say that, Ukrainian side suffered heavy losses as well. The both sides suffered heavy losses, and there's not, at this point, from what we actually seen, that we saw that the Russian troops actually digging trenches, like they digging themselves in here actually. So, but we sort of that they will try to. We don't know with what units at this point because it looks like they used up everything, and so that's a big question. How, and if they, they want to, let's say they're going to rebuild other units, then it probably will take a month. So we may see here break for a month or even more. But these troops are exhausted here. That's very clear. Okay, let's keep going. In ninja painting, is it true many Russian troops? Okay, we answered that kind of stuff. Neo has Putin ordered Steiner to counterattack. Okay. We're not sure who he refers to as Steiner. Tony Trent just, well, someone asked what the problem. Okay. Matthew, if we see that Russia cannot even deliver diesel to their tanks, how can we assume they are so great with social media? Okay, Matthew, I think you're just having like a personal problem with us. You just keep trying to attack at every single angle. I don't know why you're doing it. We're just not gonna, respond to you basically. Okay, sorry, I'm just gonna go. So trying to find actually questions here, not the holy war of the like fighting here. So polite Canadian, do you know where the International Legion is? It used to be fighting. So it's embedded with Ukrainian militia. It was fighting around Kiev. First, mostly they were like, let's say, if there is attack mostly from the western side, they would go. Let's go back. We don't have Kiev kind of at this point, but here, if the attack is mostly here, they would migrate and they would just fight here. The attack is from the east, and which was only once or twice there towards Brovary. Then they would go there, and actually that was the same maneuver that was used by Ukrainian army when they moved 72nd Brigade. So initially it was here on the eastern side, but then there was very heavy situation, difficult situation on the west. They actually moved 72nd to help 14th on the western side. So, and that was really another strategic advantage, because if you control Kiev, you can move troops from one side to another, right? Versus Russians, they could not. They had like, it was like two separate silos, right? One on the eastern side, another one on the western side. And if they don't coordinate very well, they cannot mount coordinated attack. Then you basically use all of your troops to kind of like fight back against the western side, kick it. Then eastern comes, you move all of your troops to the east, you kick the eastern side, eastern pincer. So that's kind of how the strategically was fought, and that's a problem of lack of coordination on both sides, eastern and the western, of between the Russians. And that's probably one of the reasons why the Putin fired whoever was driving the general who was sort of responsible for all of this. Okay. And so, sorry, and was kind of this international legion. So that's where it was fighting. There are also units that are not, that are foreign volunteers from more like, call it like Russian speaking countries like Belarus and Georgia. And so they have their own separate, in Chechnya, for example. Well, yeah, Chechnya is. So they have sort of their own standalone units. We also seen that, and we don't know any, we just little saw that, we don't know why, like Irish volunteers were somehow near Kharkiv. We don't know why and how and all that stuff. We just saw that report. Mm, okay, let's keep going. Sorry, just trying to find actual questions as opposed to fighting. Is there, so Suraj Bajpai, is there any chance or reports as to military aid can be or being clandestinely delivered to, there's like, okay, this is amazing. Do you really think that you will find any 100% like information on anything going on here? You will never get it. Even after the war, you will not. If you're looking for sort of mathematical precision or like, like chemical lab experiment, this is not the place. The war is thing where it's situated, it's life where you don't know many things. A lot of it is, your guess game, it's about probabilities, really, if you really think about this from, call it, mathematical point of view. um okay, Mustafa, I said, do you think Russia is delaying attacking from Izum to avoid stretching their units for better defense against the suspected Ukraine from the west of Izum? Okay, so I think there were some people getting like sort of upset. Like, let's just actually go to this Izum situation. So when we mentioned yesterday that Ukrainian troops accumulating here in Velika Komishavacha for potential counterattack, this is actually coming from Russian sources, guys, which is also tells you that they have really good intelligence and handle on situation, and that this, if Ukrainian troops do this attack, it will be unproductive attack, to say very diplomatically. So this needs to be done in very unexpected and daring ways, let's put this way. And this is just kind of like very primitive attack, and it's not gonna achieve much. No, Russian troops just no. They suffer losses, and they going back to your question, they suffer losses, and they need more troops to kind of keep pushing, and they don't have that amount of troops right now. So they trying to they right now. I'm sure that this Dvornikov is sitting and figuring out. That's the biggest question he has right now, is how to continue this war and how to do it, because that's his task, and with the limited resources he has, without doing full mobilization. And that's like what he's probably really dealing with right now. Okay, let's okay, what's, can you answer, okay, Ninja Painting, can you answer my question about Russian army discipline? What we said it deteriorated to the very bad, poor situation over time. It was better at the beginning, then it became really horrible. As things really, as they suffered losses, they, there is this, how to say, hatred and anger, and then they got more and more into doing more criminal things. So that's the answer for you for the Russian army, right? The question of do commanders say, sure, steal whatever you want? Yeah, they just yeah. Like, why do you think they not do that stuff? Like it, but it depends. Like, we're not saying every commander is saying that. Like, there are decent ones. There is no question about it. But as a whole, as a system, yeah, looting is not, and not only looting, like raping and all that stuff, it's not punished as systemically. That's where the problem. And then people see, oh, I can do it. Like, then the more people see, oh, he did it and he didn't get punished. Why I can do it too? So like very simple. Like think about this, how it works. They're not saying like it's like you're asking like, okay, it's not like, oh, I received order to, and I tell you go steal. No, it doesn't work that way. The way it works is like, some soldier says like, hey, there's stuff there, we need something for our homes. Why don't we just take it? And the commander says, okay, yeah, go do it, and just bring me share of it. That's how it really works. Just like a criminal organization, right? That's how it works. It's not different when people do this kind of stuff. It's always the same way. Okay, I don't know. You're saying you cannot see anything. That's kind of troubling. How? Okay, how Raymond May? How important are the gas fields to Russian strategy? They have zero importance for Russian strategy, because let me actually show a little bit back of Ukraine. So Ukrainian oil production is in this Poltava region and actually in Kharkiv region as well. So those like remaining oil fields in Ukraine, they're very old, and so they don't produce enough to cover Ukrainian needs. But there was something, I don't have exact information, probably like, let's say 30-40% of the need at most. And the part of it is, it's actually, maybe there is even more, maybe they can do more, but Ukrainian government has this like terrible economic policies when you have insane taxes for all of this activity, and then nobody wants to invest in it as a result. So it's a self-inflicted problem. The Ukrainian gas fields also in this area, and there's also a little bit in the west of the country. But for Russia, it's irrelevant. It's not much, and they have plenty of their own natural gas and oil, and they have, and it's cheap. They don't care about Ukrainian actual oil and gas. So just hopefully that answers your question. Let's keep going. Hold on. So just keep one. History, man. Do you buy Kramatorsk being false line? Okay, we're not gonna discuss this as a kind of some kind of. This is not political discussion here. This is not emotional discussion. We're discussing strictly military developments here. We're not trying to turn it into propaganda war situation, and we're not gonna allow us, all of these trolls to do that. So just we want to make it very clear. Swan Fork Sun, which is the impact of the international sanctions on Russia and Ukraine in the long-term war of attrition? Very good question, actually. So, I mean, Ukraine is obviously supported, right, in all ways possible right now. The economy is in terrible shape. Essentially, we think it's really what's left is really agriculture, because even like think about this way, all of this Black Sea is kind of blocked at this point by the Russian navy, and you cannot even effectively export anything out of Ukraine. So yeah, it's really just agriculture as a big part of like what's left. I mean, there are still some industries, but they don't make huge difference. Like IT, they cannot carry the loss of the industrial part, and that's really makes Ukraine very vulnerable, and basically on life support, economic. They need basically economic support from the West to continue this war long term. For the Russia, it's also suffocating the sanctions, and they're gonna get there's more and more every day. Eventually, it will lead to the point that they will lose their industrial capacity as well, and they may there is food inflation, all of that stuff. There's a shortages of many things in Russia, so the system there is is unstable, and the longer the war goes, the more economy will have effect on the decisions of Putin and what he can do militarily. So it kind of cuts deeper and deeper, and the effects are worse and worse and worse over time on Russia, and eventually it will stop the war machine. This is very clear, but it's just going to be a long time. It's not going to be in a month, and maybe the Russian top will see that, and they decide to have negotiations as a result of that, because they see the sort of writing on the wall, and they will just, okay, we don't want to get to that point when everything simply falls apart completely. But there is clearly shortages. There are serious problems in Russian economy right now, and they're getting worse by day. For example, well, we don't want to make any huge conclusions from this. Like, so don't make it like as if this is the end of Russia or anything. We're starting to see that they use like commercial trucks, like very small amounts. It's not like it's a major or anything, but they never used it before, and now we start seeing that. That's the first sign that there are problems developing, for sure. Martin asks, what do you think about the rumors that there are NATO personnel in Azov style, and that's why Ukraine keeps sending choppers to try to evacuate? Okay, so there are two parts here. First, it's possible. We don't know. It would be strange, but I mean, possible. That's one thing. What we would say is it's also probably Russian propaganda. We'll find out eventually. We will find out. So it's just speculation at this point. Let's just patiently sit and watch, and we'll see what happens, right? And then we actually can enrich ourselves into understanding how to read the situation in the future. But it's anything is possible. What we would like to say here is this: what is clearly Russian propaganda in this statement. Ukrainians keep sending choppers to die to try and evacuate them. Was not the case. That's actually like Russian propaganda spin, because those choppers were coming with ammunition for the defenders, and they were taking back wounded. So that's very clear. And because Russia also says that they're trying to take top of the Azov or whatever, that's not true. Those people there, that's why Azov is different, and that's how you know it's lie and propaganda, because that's Azov is not Soviet unit, right? It's very different unit. Please expand on Helibridge or Mariupol. Suraj Bajpai. So we actually made the video, and probably go back probably like a week or maybe even 8 or 10 days. There was discussion about this whole thing. I don't want to bore everyone for those who heard that. So, but basically, Ukrainian troops were, in short, Ukrainian Ukrainian troops were flying helicopters from Dnipro to Mariupol with ammunition, right? And they were landing in a seaport, and they came back wounded. This has been going on for a while. Then, by accident, Russians discovered that by shooting helicopter, by actually just random person, just Russian soldiers shoot the helicopters, and they realized what's going on, and they probably at this point stopped it for probably past week. So that's a short story. You can watch the video and kind of look into, learn more about it. I don't know why it's not I don't know why it's not visible. I'm sorry for this. Because I'm trying to use it, and I guess I need to spend more time learning the whole technology here. I'm just trying to spend more time collecting information that's useful, and that's a trade-off always, right? So you spend more, and the problem is the trade-off is not linear, it's actually exponential. So if you reduce amount of time, the quality goes like much more. So that's the whole problem actually in general, just saying. Okay. Monoxylindro. Is Russian using strategic air bombers? Like, I mean, maybe they do this, but they use them to shoot basically those rockets. So, I mean, there's not much from them, sort of to say. Okay. Um, where's here Jeff S? Sorry, I didn't know what's your question, Jeff S. Okay. Okay, we're trying to find questions. CB, is it foreseeable that Russia is going to run out of missiles at some point, or is that too optimistic? This is CB. So, well, I mean, it's foreseeable. How likely? The better question is, how likely is it? In the near future, it's not likely. Like, in the near future, Russia has good pile of military equipment and ammunition, even like huge pile. So they not gonna run out of military equipment, meaning like tanks, cannons, um, helicopters, aircraft. They have plenty of those. It does. There are, as we said, there are indications that we see that they start to run low on trucks. That's the indication. It's in very extremely early stages, right? Extremely early stages, and maybe we even wrong about this, but that's what we kind of watching this as a developing trend. If we see that this is like confirmed and it's firm, we'll mention it. But that's kind of very early to say. We could be speculative. Okay, so let's keep going with the questions. Mm, I'm reading questions from this list that I have here in StreamYard, and that's probably questions that you guys type. Ryan Brown, how operational is the Ukrainian 95th? So this is probably a question related to the situation in Izum, because essentially Ukrainian 95th Brigade was used to stop, well, with the 81st, and there is also tank brigade here to stop this Russian tank divisions and mechanized division here. From what we see, it suffered very heavy losses. Like, to what like extent, we only can give qualitative answer to this. Very heavy losses, and you know that's what we can say. So basically, you can even say that Russians exchanged these three divisions for these three units of Ukrainian army, kind of. So like kind of like right off on both sides in a way. That's our sort of main scenario at this point from how we see this. But who knows? Maybe we'll be proven wrong. We'll see. Um, okay, let's look for the questions. Guys, please ask questions if if you want to continue this thing. Suraj Bajpai. Since Russians are not calling war a war, but special military BS, does even Russian surrender soldiers have POW? Actually, very good point question. Technically, yes. So there was actual explanation from Ukrainian Attorney General. So technically speaking, they don't have that protection just because Russia doesn't call it a war. From a legal perspective, they don't have protection. But Ukraine did set up prison of war camps, and they sharing information with the Red Cross on Russian prisoners of war. Okay, so let's keep going. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, we really need to think next time how to block all of this emotional troll comments. My God, this turns into total holy war. Dennis, do you know why the Ukrainian side didn't use Neptune missiles? So yeah, that was actually, someone asked about the Harpoon missiles and from the Britain. In Yeah, and Ukraine has its own missile. It's called Neptune, and unfortunately, we don't know. I don't know why, because so they completed the how to say like test of it. It was approved, but it didn't go into full production, into production actually. And part of it is because there was no desire to finance army past 2 years, and well, probably the whole time it was totally like Ukraine didn't prepare for this war, like top of Ukraine. Okay, Ruikite, is there a chance okay, so this is Russian trolls. Hi, Russian trolls. Hello, Olgino, how you doing there? Hopefully you're getting worse. Verpe, how much of an advantage does Ukraine have at night? No, we wouldn't say Ukraine have much of advantage. I mean, as they get more night vision devices, that then maybe they will develop it. But right now, it's probably equal. Drive. Do you think that Ukraine still have Bayraktars, and if yes, how many? Yes, Ukraine still has Bayraktars, and they got more of them. Like we saw delivery about, I don't know if it was a week ago or 10 days, maybe 14 days ago. So yeah, they still use them. They it's still all operate. Yeah, they lost some of them. There's no question. They lost, and probably a good amount of them. Okay, Tom led. Could night attacks by Ukraine negate the power of Russian Air Force? Well, the problem is this can be only done by highly trained troops, and that's what Ukraine is lacking. Like, how can you do it with Ukrainian militia? That's a problem. I mean, in theory, you're right, but then even okay, they comes and they just come and bomb you. Like they use this tactical bombers, Su-34, and then ground attack airplanes, Su-25. And if you don't have, well, I guess you can defend against them, but yeah, you can. In theory, yeah, possible, but given the where Ukrainian troops like this, the training is, then it's then very unlikely. Let's be honest about it. Void main. What's your mind to find a way to peace? Okay. NA for 4222. My question is, what are your views for the reasons behind the Russians' high losses, and how could they have been avoided? Well, the biggest mistake was to structure this operation as a police pacifying operation. That's where the most of the losses are coming from. That's the best way. That probably could have avoided 80% of the losses. Next one. Okay, and 84222 again. Another question is, how have the Russians tried to operate differently since the start of the war to minimize their losses? I mean, they slowly learning. They not they put strongholds. They protect their supply routes. It's the learning is happening the following way. Basically, dumb people die, more intelligent survive. So it's an evolution, right? So that's how it really works, really, and it's the same as life. Steve Brown, what is a tank defense against manheld weapons? Um, there, there's no really good defense right now. The idea was initially that they use this reactive armor against it. At some point, it was somewhat useful. Well, especially except like against the old Soviet system, like this RPG-7. But at this point, because Javelin and NLAW are attacking from the top is barely protected in the tank. So because when they designed it, was think about this, it was designed like late 50s, early 60s. This whole tanks with the whole design is from that time. So think about that. They didn't think that there will be flying rockets that can explode about, well, maybe even they were thinking at that time, engineers, but they were like, okay, well, we still have plenty of time, we'll have another iteration of it, and we'll at that time we'll just develop defense against it. It just happened that there was no true new like built from scratch iteration from engineering point of view, because then from this late 50s, essentially all of this uh, engineering was just improving around the corners, the same idea. So there was never developed truly new tank. Um, so hopefully that this explains, and basically this means if they used correctly and if the rocket everything is okay, then you're gonna destroy the tank. Hold on, I don't know, and I apologize then for the pointer. I don't understand why it's not working. I need to figure that out after this. I cannot just drop it. I apologize for this pointer situation. No, Martin, I get it, and but it works totally fine on my side, and I get it that it doesn't work for you guys, and I really need to. I cannot just stop it and start trying to figure out this technical problem, and I apologize for that. I don't know what to do at this point. Um, then Santeri Vakilainen, would you happen to have info on the 61st Brigade? No, I don't have info on 61st Brigade. Uh, and yeah, it's actually even skeptical that it does exist, because what I found was just actually fake Facebook page by the Russian sort of propaganda system. So that's why I'm very skeptical about it. Um, but maybe being created as we speak, right? Similar to 60th Brigade, but it could not fight at the beginning because this is, if anything, it comes from the reserve units. So that's how it is. Okay. Ace combats ER. So do you think Ukraine can hold it? Hold what? Unclear what Ukraine. Void main. What is the approximate number of casualties in Ukrainian side? We don't have. It's not being disclosed from Ukrainian side, which we think is very wrong and disrespectful actually to Ukrainian population and citizens. But that's what's going on. But they obviously high. We would, if we were to speculate, they definitely similar to Russian losses. Um, Lord of Lords 7 question: how long will it take to take back Kherson? How likely is it that this is the first priority for Ukraine after Russia withdrew troops from Kiev and northern area? No, it's not first. So let's go to the Kherson region. Actually, we need to go all the way back. So let's go there. Um, so Kherson is obviously important, but it's not top priority. Top priority is Donbas region. So Kherson, this is Kherson. So like what's top priority is to defend this Donbas salient for right now for Ukraine. And then how likely? Well, with the troops we have here, no, not likely, because we mentioned about this. It tried and failed, and we even said that this is like mission impossible right now, because Russian troops, as you know, they suffered losses, but they fully capable of defending themselves. They not capable of attacks, but they can defend themselves very well at this point. So, Ian B, could Russia's paramilitary forces be of use in Ukraine? We they probably we don't see like clear reports, and you're probably referring to this Wagner company, this paramilitary company. We don't see like we don't see them as like, okay, there is clearly this paramilitary forces, but we would not be surprised that they are embedded here and there, but we don't have any information on that. um, Chris, hi, updates about Syrian volunteers? um, so there are Syrian volunteers on the Ukrainian side, by the way. No, we don't. No, we haven't seen much about that. like we cannot say anything. See many informations, mostly Russian propaganda about Middle East volunteers ready to help Russia. Also Wagner Group. No. There's clear group from Syria that's supporting. There was like one famous guy from Syria who was kind of like famous for like anti-tank fighting and like basically with the rockets. So that he came to Ukraine. We don't unfortunately it's not publicized, so we cannot really say anything. What do you know about Sparta unit of DNR? It's Utvara 1. um it's basically highly motivated unit, was mostly like volunteers that are super motivated. At this point it's severely depleted. So that's a nutshell of the story there, and it's obviously very frequently shown by Russian propaganda. Um, Mike Holloway, arm and feed 45 million people, lead them incredibly well, and defeat Russia. It's not impossible. Well, nothing is impossible in this life, right? In general, if you really want, you can achieve many. You can fly to the stars, as mankind right now does it. Well, not to the stars, but let's say into the space. Um, um, see a big. Oh, okay, so that's not. RV Dorwild. How will the harpoons being started? Long launch possible? Yeah, that seems like that they are. How to say? Very large systems that need to be like placed somewhere. And honestly, it makes us think that they could be very good targets for Russian rockets, for rocket attacks, right? Because they look very stationary from what we saw, so they could be taking out relatively easy, and that's just maybe unfortunate. um Okay, Ninja Painting. Do commanders say, sure, go steal stuff? No, they don't say go steal stuff. But we just explained this on this is not that's not how it works in a criminal setup. It's people don't say that because they know they do wrong things. So there's this just kind of like how to say signaling going on. Like, okay, yeah, you. It's not like, oh, you can use. I mean, you understand. Like, I don't want to explain it again. Swiss conquest. Is it possible that the Zoom bridgehead will progress again? Yes, it's very possible. Like, that's the whole point. It's very unclear where it all goes right now. What like early? That's why we just kind of said like we don't understand. Not like not. Yeah, I guess we can say don't understand the whole thrust went out. Like they went out of steam here. For the past 3 or 4 days, Ukrainian forces hold the same line. Yes, they losing a lot of troops, sure. Russia's losing a lot of troops, sure. Sounds like there is a stalemate here developing. If can Russians throw more here in this burner and then kind of push more, make more progress? Yes, they can. We're still struggling to understand what units they can throw here into this bridgehead. We suggested that the only thing that they can do here is combine 90th Tank Division and 2nd Mechanized Division into one unit and throw it. But there was very clever comment from some of the viewers saying, okay, if those units suffered, you know, decent casualties, people basically need a break, like from a psychological point of view, and that's what's happening. And we don't think that it's easily usable. So that's what puzzles us. What else can they throw into this on the Zoom bridgehead? And we don't see what else immediately. If they take a month's break or maybe 2 months break, then yeah, they can. There's sort of like the game starts again from the very beginning. But right now, a lot of resources were expended and they not immediately replenishable. And that's a whole what Russia faces right now. Saber One. What do you think about the possible tank advance around Kherson? What is the estimate of the tank force overall? So first of all, if you look around Kherson, there is almost no. There might be like a tank regiment or tank battalion supporting from the Russian side. But let's go back here. Look at the units. All of the units, they kind of tell you that they don't really have already tanks in them embedded, with the potential exception of this 20th Brigade, which could be 20th Division. But even then, they would not have much of the tanks here. So the Russians don't really have much tanks. This is more like not totally tankless fight, but with very few tanks on both sides. So that's the situation here. So there is not much of a sort of tank attacks or large tanks attack here possibility. Okay, let's do a little bit more, and we're going to be closing it. Matej Sego, how much of intelligence are NATO and EU providing to Ukraine? They're giving everything they have. Rosa Dew, there are rumors Russians should landed. Okay, no, we answered the questions. Luis Miguel Perez Juarez, what is the most powerful and threatening Russian brigade? We cannot single out. We said that the ones that perform well, that had motivations, are airborne units. Let's go back to this whole list, especially airborne divisions, but the whole airborne units, they were motivated. They may not be like did the most intelligent things, but they did what they told, and they really tried to push hard. That's what we can say. Then I guess also this fifth tank brigade, when in the same group, special forces brigades, and they were actually more creative, more initiative, more a little bit out of this Soviet mentality, but not fully, but a little bit better. That's where we would say in terms of fighting capabilities. This whole tank division, mechanized division, which were supposed to be cream of the crop, totally didn't perform well as a whole assessment of them. So they were big flop in a way. In terms of the dangerous unit, for just dangerous in terms of cleansing population, there is this 46 Brigade, which is not part of Russian army, but it's a part of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, MVD. So that's what's responsible for cleansing population on occupied territories, if that's kind of from that angle. Okay, Mike Holloway, I would be setting up dirt airfields and trying to solve the rational for attacks. Has anyone thought about arming probe-driven stuff with air-to-air stuff? Well, it's you asking pigs to fly, Mike. Unfortunately, with the Soviet mentality, the creativity is dead on both sides. By the way, I'm not gonna say just one. Are the Russians getting paid? There are some that they didn't get paid the whole salary. No, that's not what we're hearing. So just for the salary, the Russian salary for those who are fighting on the front lines is 205,000 rubles, which roughly probably like either close to $1,000, a little bit more, depending on the exchange rate. Ukrainian equivalent is about $3,000, close to it. So like 103,000 hryvnias, just to be something like 110, I think, something like that. Harty, does international court in Hague know about the actions of Unit 46 behind the lines? We don't know. We're not lawyers, so we don't have money to go to court, international court, and do these things. So what we do is just we dig this information, we analyze, we share it, and hopefully there are people who lawyers who know how to do these things. Aineya Supiana, sorry. What Russia losses would Russian start call up reserve? So that's the whole point, that Russian losses are significant enough that they really need to call up the conscripts. to continue to really kind of to accomplish their big picture goals. They still probably would, if like let's say war stops right now where it is, without even destroying this Donbass salient, Russians would be happy with this outcome. So let's say if negotiations happen, Russia probably would say, "Okay, we agree with this situation, like the way it is right now." They would make them, because sanctions are really suffocating their economy, really destroying them, and the losses like on the human side are mounting as well, like high, and probably in another months it will be, the people will start to be kind of how to say wary of the war inside of the Russia. So they would be happy because they achieve here. There is, and I wouldn't drew this important channel that supplies water to Crimea. It comes, I think, from Nova Kakhovka. It goes somewhere here and it goes into Crimea. And it takes water from Dnipro River and it supplies water to Crimea. And it really makes the whole Crimea um, economy possible. Otherwise, so just for people to understand, population of Crimea is about 2 million people, and natural supply of water can only sustain about 600,000. So without that supply of the water, Crimea is, the military capabilities of Russia in Crimea are totally crippled. So just so, and the importance of this channel is huge here, and they will defend it at all costs. So and they achieved that objective. So Harty, why are there not constant attacks on Western Ukraine rail lines? Because it will make them even worse. They're already in terrible situation, and the sanctions can get really, really like total blockade of Russia essentially, because they already looking horrible internationally, and that really makes them even, I don't know, like North Korea, or not even like, they kind of even worse than North Korea right now, but we don't even know how to compare it. Okay. Mike Holloway. Mike, we just answered the question. Is the problem is in Ukrainian top, that's like Soviet mentality. Ukraine has like a lot of good developments in terms of weapons and stuff. It's not dumb country. It's unfortunately, and then you can say that people elect that top, but that's how it works. Um, uh, Ainea Supian. Would that mean that with Russian losses they just stop and go home? No, they're not gonna go home. They're not that type of people. They just go home. Jordan Kalev, is anything known about high level command on the Ukrainian side? Who is running the show? So so the people who run the show is I'm blanking on the last name. One is Sersky, and then I think, no, not Zabrodsky. I forgot Zaluzhny. I think Zaluzhny. So from what we understand, that the president is totally out of the military stuff, which is right because he has no clue about it, and so it's run by Ukraine, the chief sort of general staff of Ukrainian army, so which is, I think it is Zaluzhny and Sersky. So those are two main people there. Ninja painting, yes, you need army to be disciplined. That's absolutely, we agree with that statement, but it's a wishful thinking. That's not how actually things work on the ground, and we can all wish good, but that's not what's happening. Kiko Ano, do we have 100% proof that Ukraine got to Russia border in the entire east north? Yes, you have proof from Vladimir Putin, who said that I withdrew troops per my order from northeastern Ukraine. So I don't know who else you need to prove. Like, if you kind of like doubting that Ukraine is there, it's there. We have confirmations from, and there's confirmations from Ukrainian side, from Ukrainian head of Sumy region, which is, this is Sumy region here on the border, like the most northeastern region, who is saying like, okay, the Ukraine is cleared of Russian troops. The same goes for Kiev region. The same goes for Chernihiv. So everybody confirmed. So I don't know why you're still doubting. Ukrainian side confirmed, which is, and Russian side confirmed, which is rare, right? They disagree on everything, but in this case, everybody agrees, and somehow you still disagree with that. Although, is there any difference of how effective UA will show in case of sending heavy equipment, tanks, blah blah blah, and try to push through major cities? I guess Mariupol have to be liberated. So look, the actually this is actually in general, we would say, incompetence in on both sides, like on, well, any side. Actually, we will bring you a very interesting example on this. To send tanks into the city battle is the wrong thing to do in general, right? They're not designed for city battles. They designed for open field battles. Something like this, southern Ukraine, where you have, flat table. That's a perfect place for the tanks. That's what they ideally designed for. They're not designed for city battles. They get burned very easily because that's not what they were engineered for. And I can tell you this example that's not related to this actually was Turkey in Syria. They sent German Leopard 2 tanks into whatever towns there in northern Syria, and most of them got burned. So it doesn't mean that these tanks somehow from west are, impossible to destroy or whatever. No, if you do wrong things with the tool will get broken. That's the whole point. And so far, Russians were doing wrong things by sending tanks into the city, and hopefully Ukraine will not repeat that. But hopefully, the tanks are designed to find other tanks and go through the open, open field terrain, like just to to make encirclements. That's what they for. They're not designed to go into cities and do city fighting. So in terms of sending heavy equipment like tanks, that's going to be helpful for sure, especially in fighting against Russian tanks. Would that's any support is extremely helpful. um, mm, okay, let's do questions. Ekom Ikpat, I have a question. Will the first armored be the station in Kharkiv, since they were successful in defending Chernihiv, and then if needed they will be used as a spearhead to attack the regard of their so I think first tank brigade suffered decent losses, that it's not capable of offensive operations. It's our subjective assessment, just want to make sure, when they were defending Chernihiv. And from what we see, they still stay in Chernihiv, and probably they kept there just in case, because people politically scared. Like, well, basically, let's say, Ukrainian political top is scared that Russians will return, then there will be nothing there after what they've seen. So they probably keep it even from psychological comfort, basically, right? So that's what probably is happening there. And they try to rebuild it in the process, probably, I would assume. Hopefully that's what's been done. Swiss conquests, conquests, right? How big do you think is Russia's time they could work with until the war can be upheld? Okay, um, I think the question is for how long Russia can last in the war of attrition. Long, that's what we could say. For sure, they can last long. We don't have enough to sort of information of insides of Russia to say like exactly like, oh, okay, it's going to be 2 years, 18 months, 36 months, but long. um uh okay, let's keep going. Just a guy, Mitch. Okay, no, that's just humanity things. Marko Zoranovic, do you think the solution could be Donetsk could become independent republic as part of peace negotiation? At this point, at the level of hatred towards each other, Ukrainian population, citizens will not accept it. That's very short answer. Will Mariupol fall? Tim Colin. Sounds like. Yeah, sounds like. At the same time, Russian side admits openly that it may take them another month to clear that up. But majority of the city is already in Russian hands, right? So you understand this. But if things don't change and there is no miracle, yeah, sounds like that's gonna fall. Thomas Orsoy, Russia has a large air force and large thermobaric bombs. Why they're not used to a great extent? So air force is fully used. I don't know why you think it's not like that's what it's very strange. Is people still think that Russia is not using air force? They're using it like totally using as much as they can. And then about these thermobaric bombs. So they are not cheap. They're very expensive tools. Just so they don't have many of them. They do use them. They have this so-called sunburn system, which is built on they use the base of T-72 tank and mounted the thermobaric rocket launcher. So they use it, but they don't have. It's expensive. The rocket is expensive because it requires magnesium, it requires aluminum, it probably requires some other expensive chemical compounds. So it's not cheap weapon. They don't have many of the huge supply of the rockets. So they use it. They use it actually near Izum. They were shelling Ukrainian infantry there. Okay. Pasolo. What about the mines that are floating in the Black Sea? What are the Russians doing about it? Nobody's doing anything. Nobody cares about it. That's very frank, honest answer about this whole thing. Raymond May. How long before the new Ukrainian effective units arrive? We don't know. We don't. When Ukrainian general staff doesn't report it. Well, if you think that Ukrainian called conscripts and started training, essentially from the start of the war, and it takes about 3 months to create at least basically decent, at basic level decent soldier, right? So the war started 24th, so it's 24th of the March, 24th of the April, 24th of the May, so probably end of the May. You can think that way. Okay, Mladen Matosevich. What are the chances Ukraine actually accepts permanent neutrality with the loss of Crimea? We think that the territorial losses are not acceptable for population of Ukraine right now. Giving amount of the losses, of the human losses they suffered, like psychology in Ukraine is not broken. It actually, if anything, increased determination to fight. So the permanent neutrality is probably possible, but not with the territorial losses. That's our assessment. Just make this is not what the president of Ukraine tells us, or this is what we see inside the population, and I think that's what's essentially drives the whole thing. Mitch Conner, US had capability to conquer the entire world in 1940. Yet they didn't. Well, yeah, fair. Tony, okay, Tony Tran. Okay, there were complaints about you, and we'll just block you. Okay, that guy. What are your take on Russian losses communicated by Ukrainian? No, we don't believe that. That's just propaganda. Sorry. The same as what the Russians say about themselves, about their own losses. That's just also propaganda and not true. So we think that actual Russian losses are no. Just get distracted by ninja painting. No, manganese is. So there's Mg. That's not what we're talking about. Mn. So okay, maybe that's manganese. Mn. So going back to this losses situation, we think that Russian losses are lower than being reported by Ukrainian side, because they report around like 18 or 19,000 of dead. that would really mean that Russia lost close to, in all kind of losses, right? Like dead, wounded, prisoners of war, deserters, sick, all of that stuff. About 80 to 90,000. That's just not the truth, because then Ukraine would win the war. Like they would start taking the territories. So that's not the case. It's lower for sure. And what many reporting is 10,000 at this point. Maybe before it was, we were saying about 6, 7, 8. So probably by now it's closing on 10,000 of dead. Probably that's more reliable assessment. And this is, again, if you ask about our opinion about Ukrainian losses, we think it's about the same. So both sides kind of exchanging more or less equally. We're not going to say, oh, we know exactly, but exchange is about equal, and that's not, in the long run, it's not good for Ukraine, because it cannot sustain equal exchange. Is Russian command ninja painting lying to their troops, to all troops, or just some? Okay, well, no, they don't lie to their troops. So they know, like everybody knows what they're doing. They conquering Ukraine. They know what they do. Like they work with insane. This is not some kind of idiots that were thrown into war without knowing that they're going into war. No, they fully aware. They're very well indoctrinated. They believe what they're doing. So they motivated. Okay. Serious Joseph Thomason. Okay, so you just made that's just a statement. Maxim Listrovy, what can you say about the current Ukrainian anti-aircraft warfare? I mean, the Soviet systems S 300, all of that S 200 is just totally not sufficient. I mean, you can see it even from the results. Could be worse if there was nothing, but they totally not capable of changing the situation. Like totally not sufficient. I mean, at the sort of at the infantry level, all of this anti-aircraft rockets, they make a difference. They make a Russian aircraft, first of all, suffer losses, and the pilots get a little bit concerned and scared. And then what they do, they don't they don't throw bombs exactly. They just like, okay, I approach close enough and I just drop them so I can report back that I did what I was told, and I still survive, right? So the precision drops significantly. That's how this works in essence. Um, where we asked your question about the advantage of Ukraine. We don't think uh, there is much of advantage at this point. Polite Canadian, what is the significance of the Harpoon missile delivered to Ukraine? Um, Honestly, in our honest opinion, that's not what Ukraine needs right now. Really needs, like, you know, very good industrial anti-aircraft systems. We're not talking about this man-held stuff. It's like about insignificant amount of that. That's what really Ukraine needs right now the most. If that can change the situation, because right now Ukrainian army cannot do offensive operations because the air is largely not controlled by Ukraine. So that's what really was needed. The Harpoon stuff, okay, wonderful, great, but honestly, at this point, and the only place where Russian can land is Odessa, but Odessa is very well defended by 28th Brigade. So, like, okay, what's like, it's not something that's like the most necessary at this point. Ivan Sali, can this land lease from US and Britain with heavy artillery at least partially compensate US destroyer? Well, let's see what it is, because we just know generic like framework. We don't know details of this. I mean, obviously, get potentially they can. It's possible, but we don't know details. What's inside of the box? Oh, okay, Ukraine. Oh my God, that's one Russian troll went to hell. Um, um, Sorry, there is not much of right now. I apologize again for this pointer situation. I will look into it why it didn't work. So sorry for that. And at this point, in the interest of answering the questions, I don't want to stop the whole thing, even though we're still coming close to the end of it. Marcus Aurelius, I would note that in Izum there is not that many supplies lines going in from the north bank of the river to the south. What is worth knowing is that the Russians are rebuilding the bridges. Okay, they are, but it takes time to rebuild bridges. Like I mean, those concrete bridges, they already have pontoon bridges that serves them well, so they don't have a problem with the bridges there right now. Verper, how much advantage does Western Night version Opus give? Yeah, it's a good advantage. It's very important. It gives significant advantage. It gives this generally better optics is extremely important in the warfare. It's extremely important. Next time you should extract questions ahead. Well, okay, but then it's gonna be not gonna be live, so that's there is trade-off here. Yes, there is a lot of. I did block a couple of this bad people, bad actors, but then it loses this liveliness, and that's I think important to people. Kiko Ano. I read somewhere from Ukraine sources that Russia phase 2 will start on April 12th. Is this true? And no, we don't. It's possible. We would be surprised. That's all. Like, if we bet on this? No, we would bet that Russia may take even up to a month to rebuild their troops. Tommy Erickson, South Front. How important is it for? Is it goal for Crimea water resources? So Crimea is dead without Dnipro River water. Like how else can that's like right now they managed to drain good amount of water from Dnipro because they used to have large like artificial lakes in Crimea in the Crimean mountains. So they probably replenish. So like let's say if the supply stops right now, they have worth of like 2, 3, 4 years of water at this point. But in the long run, you cannot do much there in Crimea without water, Ukrainian water. Um, Damian Fra, how many remaining Russian BTGs are still available in around Ukraine? About we mentioned this before. We don't see this war in terms of BTGs. I think we think that this is wrong concept in the first place. That's more coming being pressed from the West because that's how they think about things, but that's not how things are actually here in this war. They are fighting as units, as 15th Brigade, F-27th Brigade, 90th Tank Division, whatever. That's how things are. They're not BTGs. So from that perspective, we see these units here on the ground. How many losses they suffered, we can only subjectively and qualitatively assess. There is no good way. Actually, we had only one good way. There was decent way. We did comparison for first and second Army Corps here in this Donbass salient about their losses. So officially, so there are 7 brigades there between two of them. One is 3 brigades, another one is 4 brigades. So total 7 brigades. So their official losses say that they lost more than 1 brigade. So there is essentially 1 brigade. Well, it's so it was 3.6 thousand of wounded and about 800 of dead. So it's 4.4 thousand of losses, and probably include some prisoners of war, sick, whatever. So you're pushing 5,000. So that's just official report. So that's more than 1 brigade. So that's probably 1 1/3 of a brigade, 1 1/4 of a brigade. So that's kind of tells you about the losses. And this is just official losses from this collaborator, call it governments that they probably realistically higher. So that's the only sort of reliable data point we have that can explain the losses like in somewhat reliable way here. Okay, let's continue. Lend lease will be a major factor. Okay, yes, it is, and just general supply of weapons to Ukraine is a major factor. Without that, Ukraine would unfortunately just suffer huge human losses and will be done. So unfortunately, that's Thorsten Brandt. What will happen with the harpoon? Okay, our take. Sorry, like probably will be the big disappointment to people. We think Ukraine is totally grateful for it, but this is what's going to happen. We will take 6-9 months to train Ukrainians to operate that system. It will be installed somewhere near Odessa in 9 months. When you understand that hopefully this war doesn't last 9 months. In 9 months will be sort of finally operational, and if there is still war going on, then Russians will hit it with a rocket and will destroy it. And that's why we think this is totally waste of resources to supply that thing to Ukraine. Okay. Next question. Martin S. What do you think about the rumors about night advisors in Azov? We've answered that questions. We don't have any information. Like, it's just all speculation. Okay, yeah, you're repeating the. Okay, Martin. I think you're Russian troll. If you will continue this saying, we will block you. How many Ukraine? So wonderful guy. How many Ukraine troops in Mariupol now? We estimated about a week ago that was closer to 3,000. Probably at this point less. They suffer losses. There is no question about it. Probably 2.8 thousand, something like that. Polite Canadian, we appreciate that you actually trying to learn and you constructive and you're trying to push any agendas here. Okay, Olive, we apologize. We didn't mean to insult by saying Georgia is Russian speaking. What we mean is it was part of the Soviet Union, so people understand Russian language, and for them it's easier to operate in Ukraine on their own without sort of kind of like help from anybody else. They can do things on their own, and they've been shown that they are like good fighters and very capable. So they viewed as very like good fighters. That's all I can say. Sion, I'm about 30 minutes behind watching. If it has me ask, how is the ammo situation for Russia? Oh my God, Russia is just so you understand. Russia supplies ammo to the U.S. and when they were basically when they were put how you call them sanctions on Russia so that it cannot supply ammo to the US. So the price of ammo in the US went up. It was important supplier. Russia has huge capability to produce ammo, like huge, and it has huge stockpiles from the Soviet Union. Because Soviet Union was planning to conquer the entire world, right? So it was preparing for that war. So the piles are immense, and the manufacturing capabilities immense too, and they were modernized over past, I would say, 14 years, maybe 15 years. So all those manufacturing facilities are in very good shape, like in terms of they have the latest, the latest equipment. Everything is top notch there. Where the problem could be is the maintenance of that equipment eventually is going to be a problem. But for now, I mean, there's question. That's like something that like Russia can propel the Earth to the moon with the amount of ammo they have. Mark Bauer, where do you think Ukraine will try and counterattack next, Azov, Kherson, or will both sides dig in? I think the best strategy for Ukraine right now is to allow Russians to attack and just kind of destroy their attack, because you have advantage as a defender, right? So you always have the advantage and sort of bleed Russian troops wide. Exactly something what happened here west of Kiev. That was essentially what happened there. Is you bleed slowly them like by thousand cuts, and that's the best strategy Ukraine can do right now. Because until Ukraine can protect their own troops from the air attacks, any offensive will be disaster for Ukraine. So it's better not do it. I mean, unless it's like small skirmishes, but that's not, we're not considering it as truly offensive. But like really, when you have like entire brigade at least attacking, right? Not like, you know, the company of the brigade is attacking. That's not attack. What do we mean? At least a brigade attack, level attack, maybe like two brigades combined. Okay. Matthew, you really just behaving very like disrespectfully, so we're gonna block you. Yet whatever. There are reports in Twitter, other social media about fires, explosion near Kherson for several days, weeks. Is there any real information about just propaganda? We believe it's just propaganda. There was fighting south west of Kherson and maybe more for the village called Alexandrivka. It's near a town called Stanislav. Actually, can look here. We have a map. Let's just look at this. Oh, here it is. So you see this village, Alexandrivka. So Ukrainian troops were attacking it, and they failed. So it was. I mean, it's very clear the Ukraine is not prepared for major attack on Russia. Okay. Western support for undercutter. Western support for Ukraine will result in destruction of the country. Is that the goal? Okay. This is okay. Well, we'll block you. Bukur worrying how NATO can spy Russians so easily. I mean, because NATO is, you know, providing all of the communication equipment to Russia. Russia doesn't produce their own like equipment for the most part. They rely totally on supply of all the everything from the West. So then you get stuff with the bugs in them, and then you have all of the information you need, and plus the satellites, obviously. Just DNE. Okay, yeah, probably 10% is not, but they can still attack. It's probably about when they lose like 30 to 40%, then they can only do defensive actions and not much of offensive action. Joshua Carrera, have they begun to mobilize reserves to the Donbass, and have they started to take up more defensive stance and have started to dig in and hold on to the territories they have taken? Yeah, there is mobilization. If you're talking about the Russian side, they definitely mobilize conscripts in Donbass and in capture. Well, not capture. Well, yeah, captured part that they captured in 2014. There are tons of those conscripts. They poorly equipped, totally poorly equipped, with this like World War II, steel helmets. Like they horribly equipped, not prepared. Like think about this: person was mobilized on March 3rd and thrown immediately into battle. Like what kind of chance of surviving there? They totally, we don't envy those people. That's all I can say. Um, Volodymyr Dubina. Can Ukraine attack on north of Donbass from Kharkiv to Luhansk instead of pushing south? I mean, unfortunately, it looks like Ukrainian troops. For again, this is about the air. There is no cover from the air for Ukrainian, like let's say for Ukrainian attacking troops, and large groups of troops are perfect targets for the aircraft. So they unfortunately will be destroyed without inflicting much losses on the Russian side, and that's a whole problem right now. How much heavy armor can Poland, Slovakia, Romania, and Czech send to Ukraine? Not really much, because they can send this T-72s, but they don't even have reactive armor, so they totally out of dated in a way. Especially like Romania has really old stuff, and so yeah, not really much. Greg the Manly, Russia isn't the Soviet Union. They don't have the extra troops of the former Warsaw Pact and former. Well, but relative to Ukraine, it is kind of is that, right? So yes, they don't have enough troops to fight against Europe and the US, but then they hope that China will join them. So this can get really World War III. Actually, people don't realize that how bad this whole thing is. Ninja painting. Wait, Mama Nancy, right? So that's what I'm saying about. Um, Bible English. If you were in command of NATO, what weapons would you want to send to Ukraine to win the war in Donbass? As I said, right now Ukraine need to protect from the aircraft attacks. That's a like number 100%. Like the topest, the hottest item that Ukraine really needs right now. And then the second item that would be really extremely helpful is self-propelled howitzers. We heard that there were rumors that there might be AS-90 supplied from Great Britain. That would be perfect, combination for the offensive. The rest, Ukraine can still be okay using. It's not great. Like we're not saying they're great tanks, but you know, because it will take some time to retrain to like Leopard or Abrams or whatever. Like, so it's not like easily you can just jump. Well, I guess it's probably to extent relatively easy. But what would be great is those self-propelled howitzers and protection for the sky, and maybe even F-16 airplanes. That would be the best for Ukraine for right now to be able to be more effective. If you have Soul, if you have to retreat from defensive line from the east, will it be disaster for Ukraine? It certainly will be very, very bad. So this is what Teet is talking about. He's talking about this Donbass salient, and Ukrainian army built very good defensive positions that are like deep in how to say deep and they good ones. And if they lose this, then they basically here in open field, and then defending there in open field is going to be very difficult, very challenging. They obviously will form and they will try to form, but it will be huge cost, at very high cost. And if this turns into war of attrition, as we said many times before, Ukraine cannot afford to lose the same number of people as Russia loses, because simply Russia is 3.5 times larger. So Ukraine needs to be at least four times more efficient. So Patrick Moik, if Ukraine loses much ground on the Eastern Front, would it be helpful for Ukraine to blow up the dam east or Izium and flood the Donetsk riverbank? Well, they already did that. So we mentioned this in one of the. Okay, sorry. Let me go back to the Izium situation. We discussed that probably like 10 days ago. So there is actually hold on, yeah, within Drew here. So there is a river. So this is a river called Siversky Donetsk, right? And there is a river here, and we didn't unfortunately drew it, called Oskol, and there is like artificial lake for hydropower generation. So Ukrainian troops kind of destroyed that dam, and then this whole side here got flooded of Siversky Donetsk. So it's not really easily usable. So, but Russian troops built pontoon bridges here where it's not affected by that thing. So hopefully that answers the question. Okay, let's kind of finish it. Thomas Rossoy, what happened to the Wagner group that we're heard so much about? Do they have tasks in Ukraine? We believe so, but it's thought that it's like totally under radar screens, like totally under radar screens. So if we don't have, unfortunately, we don't have anything on that. Swiss conquest. Is it possible that Russia could try to do a smaller pocket in Severodonetsk? Yes, but then oh, actually, that's a perfect picture here. First of all, 30th Brigade is pretty good overall and very good, like good defensive positions here. So it's going to be very hard. They're not like a weak brigade at all, and they didn't suffer many losses so far. They're almost in good shape, like close to perfect shape at this point. So this is they're gonna hit here in the card in the most and they've worn out right on the other hand. So they're gonna be hitting against the perfectly entrenched brigade that's in close to 100% good shape, and and it's in good training shape, and like equipment shape wise they good, like, so that's just like a stronghold here, like as a brigade. So that would be suicidal. And then here they don't even have, then they have need to cross the bridge here, which would be super hard, and Ukraine still has some bridgehead here essentially. And 128th brigade is also good brigade. So it's potentially that's an idea, but we don't think so. um uh Okay, Václav Bezchleba, I think that's what it is. Do you think it will end up with political means, or it will forever turn country in half with trenches in between? That's just we can speculate on this. It's certainly not uh, well. If you're talking about the population is definitely at this point not torn, meaning like internally it's the population is very consolidated actually right now. Like what Russia did, it actually consolidated the whole population of Ukraine against itself. So that's what happened really. uh, where it will end up, it's like, it's hard to say. um Steve Brown, um, okay, Olga Buran, sorry. Not sure when you get this, but in 2014, new gas fields were found in Ukraine. Yes, in the same year, the Bucharest summit announced in Ukraine will join NATO venture. No, that's not correct information. What are you saying? The Bucharest summit was in 2008. Those fields that you're talking about, and actually, again, the right place. So they were discovered in this south, like basically north of Donetsk region, Slavyansk, and all of this area, this whole area. And they were discovered in 2011, 2012. And there was big hope that mm, there is huge opportunity. And actually, after drilling several holes, it's not cost effective to extract them basically. So there is gas there, but it's expensive at the current prices. So hopefully that there's clearly nothing. This is kind of like conspiracy theories about this whole like gas, natural gas there, and all that fun stuff. Steve Brown, what is happening to the gas and oil pipelines in Ukraine? Yeah, they're still pumping. The natural gas pipeline is still pumping Russian gas to Europe. That's what's happening. There's no oil pipelines through Ukraine. Well, not operating, and it wasn't operating for a long time. The oil pipelines through Ukraine. So the natural gas is still Russian. Natural gas is still flowing through Ukraine. Polite Canadian. Another question: if that's it's totally okay. Has Ukraine received any supply trucks from the West to improve its logistics? No, not to our knowledge. No, that's not what they were asking. I think they kind of like okay. Ukraine, there's I wouldn't say that Ukraine has a huge problem with supply trucks. Honestly, it's actually not. I wouldn't identify that as a problem area yet. Maybe eventually, but not right now. Um, um, okay. What's North Africa? Russia has cell sign. So that Raymond May, yes, because we also have experience, like we have knowledge about oil and gas for the past experience, so we can tell you that it was big flop. Yes, exactly for this North Donetsk region, close to Slavyansk, all of this area where actually the fighting is going on right now. And that was the idea, was to that they can do extract natural gas through fracking. Turns out this is expensive. Actually, it was the same story in Poland at the same time, like eastern part of Poland, and everybody had huge hopes that this is going to solve Polish dependence on Russian gas. And unfortunately, the the results were such that yes, there is natural gas, but it's expensive to do. Basically, there's not enough of it, and then it makes it expensive. So like, let's just close this whole natural gas story because it's empty box. Um, okay, what else? Dan Panos Demis, can even both sides sustain a war past 90 days? Good question. It would be totally speculative. We just not worth speculating totally. Harty, why are there not constant attacks on Western Ukraine railways? We just answered that question before, so please. Um, Yves, Yves Bourgeois, how often have they used switchblade drones on the front? They have not used them yet. They have not even arrived, and it will take little time to train Ukrainian troops to use them. And second, there are only 10 Switchblade 600, which is what really is needed. So only 10. Think about that, and only 100 of Switchblade 300, which are not really exactly what is really needed there. So this is similar to kind of like Harpoon situation when the things that were supplied is not exactly what's totally needed on the ground. I mean, they helpful, there's no question, but like they need, like, if anything, Switchblade 600, and they got only 10 of them. So think about that. Raster, when Russia can no longer pay their soldiers, then that should really stop the whole thing. Your thoughts? No, that's not how Russia operates, and just that's not mentality of Russian people. Um, Jeff, do you know people in Russia? And I do, and they are not affected any more than Western countries. People in Russia used to sustain difficulties from the Soviet time, so they less susceptible to pain. That's all we can say. Does So Mitch Corner, does the attack on Ukraine have any correlation to Putin's tragic childhood and pathetic upbringing? It's certainly, well, it's all a result of what he learned, like, and that's a part of, like, environment that poisons you, that says, okay, this was yours and was incorrectly taken from you, illegally taken from you, and you need to take it back. And so he raised in that environment, and this is what you get as a result. So in a way, you can even say he's a victim of the environment out there, but it doesn't change anything. Another question: could parts of the 28s be moved to attack Kherson? Was there still a risk of Russian troops to attack from Transnistria? Yeah, polite Canadian. So let's go back to this whole situation. Oh, sorry, I think I'm going in the wrong direction. So here, like, 28s is kind of like have several sort of potential issues. First of all, this Transnistria, what you call this area, and sorry, my pointer, I realize how bad it is. I apologize. So this whole Transnistria, there are Russian troops there, even the small number, but if you move 28s, most of it to help 59s to attack Russians, you making it, essentially the whole Odessa, like, not defensible. Well, there is still militia there. There is another brigade of militia, but how reliable? There are some terrible stories about one of the guys who was head of that militia, unit there. So there are questions about that whole situation with the militia there, and so then Russian troops can attack by sea landing right here, because they still probably have some naval infantry brigade in their pocket in Crimea, waiting for their right opportunity. And maybe they will be forced to commit it here. We don't know, and they will completely scratch that plan. Let's say they send them here to attack from the south, like this Donbass salient, to help there. But you don't know, so you cannot really move much. This 28s, they already do little. They had like reserve battalions, so like kind of like call it like extra battalion that they managed to kind of create, and they they move it to help 59s to push a little bit Russian troops. Like that's probably why they were like attacking here. But you see, like without those troops that they're not ready to really attack in a major offensive way, and that's what it is. Lost no switchblades used yet. They are training. Yeah. So Zigeritsa 666. What do you think the chances are Putin will stop aggression if he win in eastern Ukraine? Also, I really appreciate it. Thank you. So no, that they will not stop aggression. Well, they may stop for right now. The same as was going on with this Crimea, right? Was annexed from Ukraine in 2014. Then they captured, parts of Lugansk and Donetsk, and everybody was hoping that well, actually, the Ukrainian top was hoping that they're gonna give Crimea to Russia, and Russia will kind of let them sort of run the rest of the country. And didn't happen. Eventually, he wants the whole Ukraine. There's very clear in Russian this how you call it like theorist of the who kind of developed ideologies. That's probably the right way to say. They say they need the whole Ukraine. Maybe they will. What they say that we're willing to give to Poland Western Ukraine. That's what the concession is. That they like okay because it's so aggressive like that part of the country is so aggressively anti-Russian that they probably would need like almost kill the entire population. So they like, okay, we're willing to give it to Poland, but they don't accept even the idea of independent Ukrainian state. So that hopefully, so they may be okay, like say, okay, let's just have a peace. But then again, in 8-10 years, if the opportunity is right, they will continue attack. They will continue pushing this. And by the way, so like from a historical perspective, so you understand, that's actually how Russia destroyed Poland in what is that in 18 well starting from the end of 17th and then really in the 18th century they were well actually that's really started in like 1508 when because if probably most people don't know but Smolensk was actually not kind of Polish but sort of controlled by Poland. That was actually Polish province, Smolensk, which is now next to Moscow. So they started with conquering Smolensk in 1508, and by 1795 they completely destroyed Poland and consumed the entire of the Poland. So that's not what's going to happen there. Um, Kikoano, do you think Russia will blow up all the 5 dams in Dnipro River and make it really hard to move heavy armor? Doesn't look like they that level crazy. That's all. Like it's no not because of the armor. It just there will be a lot of dead people, like civilians. That's all. It will create huge way. Those artificial lakes have a lot of water in them. Like they huge. It's a lot of energy. It's gonna be really bad. Hope it doesn't look like they want to do that kind of stuff. Let's be honest. Um, um, Jeff S. Read full queue, please. Okay, sorry, and I'll be more like I'll pronounce better. I'll be slow so that people. I saw that you can kind of go through the roster, and maybe that's easy. But okay, clear. Mitch Conner, why does Putin enjoy raping toddlers so much? Isn't that raping teen toddler woman more enjoyable? Mitch, you very emotional. It doesn't help anyone. Um, um, Jeff, the ruble is doing better. The pre-war, some European countries are now buying oil and gas with rubles. These are two amazing things that break the narrative of Russia economically crushed. Jeff, that's not correct because essentially yes, Russian ruble strengths to pre-war level, but that's artificial picture. That's not open market. That's not free market. It's essentially they don't allow people to buy US dollars. And if you remove significant portion of the buyers from the market, you don't have true picture. That exchange rate is fake. Hopefully that explains the situation. Donald Becker, I would say that the Russian lost the northern campaign. Okay, that's, oh wow, so much trash. Okay, that helped. Okay. Geo have gains from the Kramatorsk trade. You don't see that Ukraine has, you are blind and stupid. Okay, sounds like you you're really emotional. Let's just do a couple more questions because it's really, and I still need to do update. So Raster, please comment about this. I think Ukraine should blow that bridge between Russia and Crimea. Any thoughts? Ukraine does not have technical capability, military capability to do that, because Tochka U only flies 120 kilometers. That's a distance that it can fly. Hot and sour videos. Do you think the US could realistically open the Black Sea to allow agricultural exports through Odessa? It's a disaster there. There are like this sea mines, Russian Navy. We don't even like. Sounds like it's going to be really bad situation, to the point that maybe Ukraine will start exporting through Poland, through the Baltic Sea. This is just speculation at this point. John H., how do you know 95th Brigade has heavy losses? Yes, we have sources from relatives. That's how we know, but we're not going to disclose anymore. Steve Brown, was the US general captured in Mariupol? No, there's no captured US general there. We believe it's all Russian propaganda, but it's possible that there are some, officers from NATO there. It's totally just generally, like, it's possible in life. We believe it's 1% probability, but just but we don't know. It's all speculation. Chuckles, how much of Rubizhny is under Russian control? Essentially, most of the town, north and the center of the town under Russian control, only small portion of the south under Ukrainian control. So you can kind of like technically say it's under Russian control because they control the central part of the city and so on. But yeah, that's the situation. RHCP Punk, are Mariupol going to get support to fight back the Russians? Doesn't look so at this point. Danny B, hi Danny B. How can Ukraine take back Kherson? What is needed? What is needed is air support. That's what is mostly needed right now. Either fighter airplanes, specifically fighter airplanes like F-16, probably would be the best solution for Ukraine, and then like industrial anti-aircraft rocket systems, not this like Stingers or whatever, like not that command held stuff that's just kind of toy, but really serious and in good number of them. So that's really what is needed to allow Ukrainian army to do proper offensives. Panos Demis, is there any possibility for Ukraine to destroy the Crimea bridge? No, we responded to that. Videos. Any active sabotage against Russian? Any active sabotage by civilians against Russian forces in Kherson? We don't have exact reports, but we would suspect that this is happening, but we don't have like clear-cut reports. Just Diny, is this a war against America? Yeah, probably that you can that's a fair statement in our opinion. It's just not fought on American soil, but this is really the war against, I would call it, Europe and America. Astvar, Neptune has a lot of issues, so possible. We don't know, like we don't know enough technically about that. We never sort of follow that because we think that anti-ship air missiles is not top priority in terms of what really Ukraine needs. Um, JMN, I'm from the US. How can I help help for Russia or against Russia? If for Russia, we don't know. We cannot help you with that. That's probably you can call Russians and ask them. They will help you. They will tell you what to do. RIC Punk. Do all Ukrainian people understand the Latin alphabet? No, not all. And actually, probably not even majority. Ukraine gets Mitch Corner. That yes, it gets. Ukraine gets steady supply of Bayraktar UAVs. That's correct. And Russia is very unhappy, and they trying to push Turkey to stop that. But Turkey's kind of playing good game, saying it's a private business, and I don't want to get involved in the private business. So there's diplomatic war going on around that whole thing. Um, um, okay. Let's do some last question. This is going to be last question because it's really actually really late. Chuckles. Also, how much of Popasna is under Russian control? 50%, and including railroad depot under Russian control there. So like good 50% of the town. Okay, well, thanks everyone for this. Just announcement. I will be traveling for family situation all of the next week and the beginning of the following week. So we won't be able to do live stream. That's the first thing. And then I will try to do updates every day as much as I can. Maybe it will be every other day, but if there is something like important and serious development, I will definitely try to do update. The maps maybe not be in the perfect shape, so please be patient, understand my personal situation, and yeah. So hopefully everybody understands that. That will be kind of a little bit. I will be trying to do something like extra on top of another difficult situation. So I appreciate everyone and have a good night, have a good evening, whatever it is. Good morning to if you're having morning. Thanks for joining, and until next time, thanks again, guys. Appreciate it.